Anyway, so this is Talkaoke. Let's give Will another huge round of applause. It's been a very interesting discussion. Where are we going to take it from here? It's up to you. My job is simply just to move the mic around. Whoops. And best I can.
Mikey, you're so much more than that.
But it's kind of up to you where you want to take this conversation. Where do you want to go with it? Do you want to talk about? I mean, there's a few different themes. There's a question of success. There's a question about why people make art or songs, or there's a question about like. Do we even want to have fun, or would we?
A curveball.
Yeah.
Here's something we can talk about. Society is overly visual. Discuss.
Okay. We're going to park that for a second, and we're going to have a few. Because let me just get some names. I don't know who everybody is because I've just been eating hummus in the background. So let me just get some names, and then maybe we'll go with that. We'll see what the people like. Is society overly visual? Do we want to go with that one? Do we even know what it means? But let's get names first of all. I'm going to start off with you. What's your name?
Angus.
And
Nancy. Emma. Tess.
whoa. Woo! And
Scarlett.
Stephen.
Lottie.
I'm Luke.
Amelia.
Archie.
Tom.
Daryl.
Paul.
welcome, and I'm Mikey. So where do we want to go? Do you want to follow this thread about is society? Yeah.
I'd love to kick us off with that one, Mikey, because the first thing we mentioned about you is your beautiful shirt.
Okay, so
why did we appeal to that so much?
Okay, so are you kind of agreeing with Aidan that we're a bit too much on the visual level?
I never said we were. I just.
Okay, well, I mean, are you subscribing to the idea?
Well, I guess we didn't ask how are you, Mikey, first, did we? We said we like your shirt.
Well, I'm a little chilly, but I'm having a great time.
I'm glad, Mikey.
Yeah.
I didn't ask, but that's fine. Yeah.
Anyway, no, I'm good. No, because obviously I want to keep the visual look. So, I think the visual element is important. But are we overly visual? What does it even mean? I mean, can you be too visual?
Wouldn't you say that love has just become based on looks instead of kind of
Yeah.
And kind of, like if you look at someone, you think, oh my god, cool.
Okay.
But like yeah, no. But what I'm saying is like people just don't judge it on the actual.
So what
core.
should they be judging it on rather than
Give them a chance.
Okay.
Even if they know, just to get to know them.
Okay, so, all right. So there's a point over here. I'll come to you.
I hate to bring it up, but like on Love Island, like on the first episode, you just walk in and they just pick you off what you look like. You don't even like have a conversation. Right.
Okay. So you're agreeing that we are too visual, and what should it be instead of the looks?
You should have a conversation, get to know
Okay.
them.
How they converse. Okay. What's the point here?
Yeah, I was going to say, people need to have. I feel like people need to have slight visual attraction at first sight, but like they also. I feel like people do judge too much off of like what people look like, and I think that shouldn't happen.
Okay, so visual is not unimportant, but we're a bit over. Do you go on looks or do you go on conversation? If you go on conversation, you're in the right place. This is Talkaoke. That's what we're talking about. Are we a too visually dominated society? Let's have some final thoughts over here.
Yes.
Yes.
We are.
Okay. All right. Final thought?
Yeah, I think we are, but I'm not sure if that's a bad thing.
Okay. I mean, is there anything wrong with good looks? That's no. Okay.
I've never had a problem with it myself.
Okay. Yeah.
If it's entirely based off the visual aspect, then surely blind people shouldn't be able to fall in love.
Okay.
Like Stevie Wonder, I'm pretty sure Stevie Wonder's married. How do you manage that? Ray Charles.
Okay, has Stevie Wonder fallen? Anyone got any details about blind musicians and whether they fall in love? Do you need a vision to fall in love? What do people think? We've got a couple of spare seats here. Yeah.
There's a group of people called sapiosexuals. And essentially what these people are is they find intelligence sexy.
Right, okay.
And so people with an IQ over 130 are perfect.
Okay. So is intelligence more of a turn on or more sexual than looks? We can go there. What do people think? What's more attractive, looks or intelligence?
Can I speak?
Okay, all right, yeah.
Yeah, I just think there's
Thank you.
I really didn't, mate. I asked if like branding was too much of an issue, and like suddenly anyway. I just think that like each individual's got a complete sort of multifarious, complex collection of things that comprise their attraction, whether it's whatever kind of attraction it may be. And I think that each individual person can like have all that as well, and time can change stuff.
So it's more like a kind of scorecard then.
Mate, it's not even that. It's like an assault of all different energy and ideas and stuff. It's like just like so many different things all at once. Like 10 million different things sort of collide there. Yeah, and one of those is like the visual, because it's our main sense.
Okay, so we're talking about the psychology of attraction. What makes somebody attractive? Is it their intelligence? Is it how they look? Is there other elements that we haven't considered yet? There's a point over here.
That's incredibly personal. Like you can't really like modernise that across everyone, because other people find different things attractive.
Just people just have what they've got, and that's how they are, and you can't really.
Some people might find big lips attractive, other people might not. You know what I mean? Yeah. But you can't really compare if that person's attractive or not, because you've got different tastes.
Okay, so it's just basically it just is how it is.
It's subjective.
It's subjective.
Exactly.
Okay, so. Okay, we're not influenced by. What were you talking about? Some
Love Island.
Love Island. So are we not influenced by things like Love Island and stuff like that? We've just got our own subjective view that is what it is.
I would say that when you were asking about whether intelligence is important, I would say that it's important to be able to hold a conversation with someone.
For you.
Well, yeah, just for any relationship in order to keep it healthy, really. Otherwise, it'll die. Okay. But what I'm saying is that it's like you don't need to have like a massive IQ of like 130 or something. You just need to be able to
have a conversation.
Yeah, and be on equal terms. If you know what I mean.
All right. Well, I mean, maybe we could talk about what makes a good conversation and how to hold a good conversation. As Archie is saying, what's that?
I just said that since we're having a conversation, that's quite an ontological move.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Discuss this, discuss the nature of what we are doing, why we are doing it, like discussing a discussion.
Okay.
And we're having a discussion about that now, Mikey.
Okay.
This is
right. You're doing my head in now. I'm not going to give the mic to you again. So I'm just trying to explain. Is everyone following where we are right now with this? You know, what we're talking about attraction? What makes somebody attractive to somebody else? Is it looks? Is it the art of conversation?
It's understanding.
Understanding, right?
Yeah. Right. If I don't understand you, you're not happy.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm called Luke.
Okay, Luke.
Really?
There we go.
By the way.
Yeah. Understanding.
Okay. And I was born in 1977, so I was named after Luke Skywalker. By the way. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the point. Understanding is basically it.
If you don't understand me, I don't understand you. We're unhappy.
Okay.
So I've got to understand you. Otherwise, we can't have a conversation. We can't understand each other. Therefore.
Right. Okay, so understanding. We've got to understand each other. Is that important in the conversation?
I think there's also an element of like understanding yourself before anyone else can.
Okay, so you've got to understand yourself before you can understand others.
Because like there's one thing like arguing against, like, say someone says something about a certain opinion, but you don't know your own opinion, you can't really critique their opinion.
Okay, all right.
Who though can say around this table you understand each other? You understand yourself. I don't.
Okay.
I'm 42.
Do you
right?
Who do you understand more, other people or yourself?
I understand other people.
Okay.
Before me.
Okay, so you understand others before you understand yourself. Do you need to understand others? Archie?
It's like the principle of like, so we said you've got to understand yourself before you kind of go into a relationship. It's like you've got to love yourself and respect yourself, because there's no point in going to someone else for them to love you, because once they break up with you, then you're just going to be destroyed. So like you need to build yourself up, and have like a defense barrier before.
Can't you do that during the relationship?
No.
Okay.
I think there's definitely a very idealist situation of understanding yourself before you let someone else love you or anything like that. But I think it's a true kind of love is found through that progression and that continual strive to understand each other and yourselves as well.
Okay, so it's about more of a process of understanding that's going on. Okay, yeah.
I think obviously you've got to have you've got to know who you are, but you also, I feel like the other person that you're with can help you also find yourself a bit as well. But it's also about, obviously you want to like have that barrier, like so you don't, like when they break up you're not like who am I kind of thing.
Okay.
But like you want them to help you also find yourself, so then you can help them find themselves.
Okay, so you can actually do this within. What's your name again?
Emma.
From what Emma's saying, I'm getting it's within the relationship you can actually understand yourself and become stronger and become more resilient to when you eventually get dumped. If you do.
Yeah, well, sorry it had to be this way, Mikey. to pick up on what Luke said, like he said he's 42 and he changes. I feel like in relationships, whether they're friendships or romantic or whatever, there comes a point where you stop changing yourself to be like them to where they change you.
Okay, so there's a point. So you start changing yourself, but then you get changed by the other person.
Yeah, you start off, you're both changing at different rates, and then you start to converge, and then you end up changing each other.
Okay, so all right, are people picking this up? Are people understanding it, Steve?
7.2 billion people on the planet to suggest that that's what happens for every relationship is absolute nonsense.
Is that the ideal, or does that happen only rarely? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that every relationship is completely different, and every individual is a complete unique being and specimen. In terms of the relationships that people are going to have with each other over time, I don't think you need to be in love with yourself before you find someone else. I think you can find love with them and then start to love yourself afterwards. I think the suggestion that there is one idea of what it's going to be like is just nonsense.
So it's a bit like Minecraft, you can build it up how you want, in a way. Okay, yeah. Oh, sorry. See, that is bad talkie. Where's Will gone? Will, that's bad Talkaoke hosting. When you come, you're not supposed to bring your own ideas into this.
Right, well, I'm not mining, by the way, Minecraft. I don't want obsidian. I'm not interested. I'd like a diamond sword, but hey-oh. What I would say is when you get to a certain age and you've basically fucked it up so many times. Yeah. Actually, you get to a level where you go.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I am me. I'm not gonna change for anybody else. However, I might change. I mean, you can't say that you're not going to change because.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You might still change. Yeah, of course.
I mean, I know you're not necessarily talking about yourself, but in all of those like failed relationships of this abstract person, did they actually change that person, or is that person's the person they always have been?
No, we're still the same person. We're still a cock. You still you have your own idiosyncrasies. Come on, let's be honest. Okay. You do, don't you? Right.
So the essential person, not necessarily Luke, but whoever it is, the essential person still remains that person throughout all the hardship and struggle. Yeah.
I might not agree with everything Luke says, but he tells it like it is, and for that reason, I'd love to go for a pint with him and maybe vote for him one day as well.
Okay, well, looks like you've
Boris, by the way.
Okay, so where do we want to go with this conversation? Do we want to talk about relationships? Do we want to talk about how we change as a person, or what doesn't change? Is this essential? Yeah.
Have you ever consciously changed yourself to sort of affect somebody's impression of you?
Yes. Okay. Have you changed for others, and how? Is the question. Do we want to answer?
Intelligence.
Yeah. What do you mean? Have you lowered your intelligence or raised your intelligence?
No, raised. You won't lower.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Raise intelligence to create an impression.
Okay.
So I needed medical training, and I did some of that out of school, and that helps now in life.
I mean, was it to impress a particular person, or just impress people at large?
No, it's a work thing.
Right.
Helps at work.
Okay. Has anyone else changed themselves in order to impress, or in order to? Yeah.
I work in a tea room, and I'm like, so you have to look like all the time. Like I can't look like a mess.
What elements of your person do you actually change?
Just like your appearance.
Right.
So it's like because you need to like just make a good impression on them.
Do you change your personality as well?
Not really.
Okay.
So this is really interesting, right? Okay, because I've got two girls. I've got a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old, and they're bastards, basically. Yeah. So
where does that come from?
Probably from me and the mother. However, what this lady you just said, I've changed myself to do this job. So you had to be pleasant, you had to be kind of like nice to people, and how does that change you? Does that mean you're not pleasant and you are not sociable and you are rude to people?
Okay, I'm just gonna spread this around. Emma and then Archie.
I don't think she was saying she was changing herself. I think she was just saying she had to look her best self. So she was already like pleasant and stuff, but she had to just make herself like.
Okay, so it's a particular facet of yourself. It's like you don't present your whole self. You just present one facet of yourself, and that's it's your best side, I suppose. Archie.
Working as a waiter in quite a high-end like bistro, it's like. Yeah,
Have you done this? Have you done this, or is this?
This is what I do, right?
Okay, right.
And it's like, what about what you've got to change yourself? It's about presenting yourself in a way that doesn't make them treat you like dirt, because a lot of customers do that.
Right. Okay.
And it's so a way of changing yourself so that you can make yourself seem as good as them.
Right.
Even though you may not necessarily be.
You've got. How do you do that?
You've got to present yourself well. See, like, I understand what you were saying, like, it's not about when you're not presenting yourself well, you present yourself badly, it's just presenting yourself better and more suited to the role.
Okay.
And so it's about, I don't even know what I'm saying.
But does that change you as a person? Does that make you better presented in other areas?
I hate it.
Okay.
But it's what you're supposed to do, isn't it, so?
Okay. Yep.
There was one fella called Diogenes, and it was labelled Diogenes the Cynic.
Diogenes, yeah.
And essentially... in ancient Greece, there was this whole social code that you had to follow, and he completely refused. He refused to buy a house, and he lived in a barrel in the town square. And essentially, he refused everything social, and he was the.
But he wasn't working in a bistro, was he?
No, he was the pinnacle of Greece culture.
Yeah.
And one day, some people broke down his barrel that he lived in, and.
Assassin's Creed Origins.
What?
No. That's a reference I don't get either, but then again, we'll come back to you and find out about Assassin's Creed. Let's find out about Diogenes first.
And Greece just replaced his barrel.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So they gave him a new barrel?
Yeah.
Okay, so what lesson is this giving to us?
You can refuse the system as much as you want and you'll still be rewarded for it. You don't have to follow it.
Okay, so actually if you don't live up to expectations, if you don't smarten yourself up, present yourself nicely, actually in the end, you're rewarded for it.
Well, in like a capitalist environment, if you don't, apart from benefits, if you don't work for stuff, you don't.
That's not capitalist.
No, it's. We did this in Inspector Calls, so I'll have you know, I'm an expert on this. It's sort of the pseudo mix of socialism and capitalism. Yeah, so if you don't work for the stuff, you don't get the reward. But whereas. No, it doesn't come in. Shut up, right? So capitalism, you get rewarded for the amount of work. It's supposed to be equal, but it's not. It's not. It's not. But but it just rewards who invented capitalism and sort of takes away.
Right.
Exactly. It evolved to be useless. Just don't go back to medieval. We need the feudal system back. We need serfs.
There's a lot there. There's a lot there. We may pick up on some. There's a few other. Let me just get some. There's a point over here, then here and here. Yeah.
See, I don't mind it personally, because the whole like changing yourself thing. I don't mind it because you can be like the whole like being different thing is like you can do little things to be different in like that kind of aspect of it.
Right.
It's not about like the big things like dyeing your hair and getting tattoos and piercings and stuff. You can just do like little small things.
Is that like the modern equivalent of the guy that lives in a barrel? Like dyeing your hair?
Kind of, because like parents are always like, well, my parents don't want tattoos and stuff. Like I had to fight with my mum to get a second piercing, but it's like the whole like rejecting the norm.
Okay, there was a point over here.
I guess to expand on what Robert was saying, maybe in potentially Darryl. I don't know why I'm calling him Robert. I apologise, Darryl, profusely. I guess there's a level of this kind of corporate world that a lot of us will have to operate in throughout our lives, and it's even our vocabulary and how we talk to people. How you speak in an email will never be how you speak face to face. Anything like that.
I mean, do we have to subscribe to it, or could we just go like the Diogenes guy?
Well, to be professional in a way, professionalism and commercialism, they're linked together, and that's how you get to success in a lot of fields.
Okay, so we have to kind of adapt ourselves for the work life. Come and have a seat on the table of chat. It's drier here.
Can I just say, stay away from emails. Literally stay away.
Why?
Why? Because whatever you write in an email can be misconstrued. So the way I would say a word to you, you'd understand that. But if I wrote it, it could be misconstrued.
So back to the understanding point.
Okay, totally. Just go back to speaking to people, and also in a society, basically where you've got a barrel. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're going to do anything or not. Barrel. Basically, just do what you need to do, but support. But it's about supporting everybody. It doesn't matter about you're on benefit or working or how hard you do, but as you are working and you are supporting everybody else, you want everybody else to do as well as you can, don't you? I don't want you to go and do drugs and basically drop out and be shit. I want you to be well, and I want you to do. I want you to be well.
Okay.
Because it supports everybody.
Okay. So we're talking. I mean, we're talking about come and have a seat. We're talking about the philosopher Diogenes that lived in a barrel, and he never answered his emails or any other whatever the Greek contemporary form of emails was. But should we conform to expectations for the sake of work? The consensus seems to be yes, we should, but does it affect our personality? That's what we're talking about right now.
Mikey, last year we talked about Oscar Wilde,
yeah,
and this year we're talking about emails, and I think that's a really pertinent point. That's all I'd like to say.
What is the point?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, okay. So we got some new faces to the table. Maybe it's time now to just get some extra names. So what's your name?
Kathy.
And
Terry.
And is it Emma?
Yeah.
And
Tess.
Was it?
Tess.
Tess. Sorry. So the rain is kind of like affecting my hearing. Aidan, what's your name?
Scarlett.
Scarlett, that's right. And Steve and
James.
And Luke and
double up. Go on. One of them.
Anyway, I'm getting bored of this now, but we've got the gist. We've got a bunch of people with names around the table. And what's that?
You said with names, people with names.
Yeah, we've got people with names around the table. Some of them I remember, some of them I don't. Yeah. Do we even need names? I want to know some of the younger.
Quickly where it's going. Just proceed quickly where it's gone or where it's going.
Well, I can tell you where it's where it's come from, but I can't tell you where it's going because basically we started talking. I mean, I got in the table, and the question was, do we live in a too much of a visually oriented society where it's all about looks and not about other things? And then people said, well, you know, you're attracted by what you're attracted by, and then it was about intelligence and conversation, and should we actually improve our art of conversation? Is it about understanding? That's what Luke said over here, rather than conversation. Then we sort of talked about, do we actually change ourselves to make ourselves more liked or more appreciated in society, or do we go like this guy Diogenes, who's a Greek dude that lived in a barrel a few thousand years ago, who just did what he did, and that's where we are right now. And then we came on to emails, and Aidan's just mentioned Oscar Wilde. I'm not quite sure why, because last year we were talking about Oscar Wilde. This year we're talking about emails. Luke says don't answer the emails because you can be don't respond to emails because you will be misunderstood, and it's all about understanding, and that's where we are now. Okay, I'm going to come to you in a second because what's your name again? Sorry.
Oh, it doesn't matter, does it? Right.
No, it doesn't.
So essentially, like, what was it? Diogenes' barrel. It's his little rebellious thing he likes to do.
Yeah.
And perhaps Luke's fruity language and and his denial of emails is his little rebellion against the man. Against the man.
Right. Okay.
That's what he gives him a sense of purpose in the world, he's special, like he's different from anyone else. Not especially like Diogenes as well.
Yeah.
You are just a man. You just.
So we all need. Have you got something like that?
No, not really.
Okay. Do you wish
I'm just a normie. Yeah.
Do you wish you have something like that?
No. What?
Nah, you haven't heard him play.
He's got mad chest hair, to be fair.
I've got
Got what?
Insane chest hair.
Okay, right. Oh, mad! I thought he was talking about Manchester, like the mad version. What they called Manchester in the '90s, Manchester. Anyway, you're at this point over here, Emma.
Yeah, I was gonna say, fair enough. Like, if you wanna not conform, but like, what if you need a job or need something? If you don't reply to the email, you're not going to get the job.
Okay, so sometimes you're forced to conform. Yeah.
This is just a question for Luke. You know, he comes here with his really fetching super dry hoodie, and he tells us all not to reply to emails. I just wondered if he practiced this or whether it's just empty words. Can we have a direct answer, yes or no, whether he has replied to an email in the last 12 months?
Okay. Have you replied to emails in the past?
No, I live in a cave and you know, build fires and cook for myself. I don't. Of course I have.
Okay.
Yeah. However, it's about communication and understanding with people, isn't it? You know.
Okay. So you wish you didn't have to reply to emails.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was yours. I thought that was yours. This is essentially a festival for children. It has been a lot of children, but luckily what we did is we upped the level of conversation, made it more philosophical. We scared most of the children away, but some of them are still here. People like Scarlett. What's your name again?
James.
James. What do you make of this conversation? Actually, do you think you need to conform? Do you think you can be different? Do you have to conform to survive? What do you think, Scarlett? Do you feel like you have to fit in with everybody else?
I didn't get anything that you just said.
Okay, right, okay.
And so you should. Your age.
I mean, do you...
And you shouldn't be swearing.
Okay, right, okay. And James, do you feel? I'm trying to explain. Do you feel like you have to be the same as everybody else? Do you feel you can be different?
Yeah.
And what about if being different actually has a cost? It means that you don't get the grades or you don't get the job.
Well, if you're different and people judge you for it, you can judge them for things that they're different, and then they might feel that they shouldn't judge you.
Okay, so you actually turn the challenge back on other people. So you know, some people like to be different. Do we need to be different? Do we have to squeeze ourselves, reshape ourselves to be to conform in society?
Well, you see, there's no such thing as difference. Well, there is, but as soon as everybody becomes different, it's the phrase everyone's unique, because as soon as everyone becomes unique becomes normal.
Okay.
So in essence, everyone's the same.
Okay, we're all the same, so no matter how hard we try.
No. Of course we're all different, but if we're all different, then difference becomes the same.
Okay, I think I'm picking up what you're saying. I'm going to come to you in a second test, but let me just...
I would say that in my experience, difference is a poison. And, you know, I feel like conforming, or as much as I hate to say, is a good thing.
Okay.
But I don't agree with conforming to a society like this one.
Okay, so it's good to conform, but the problem is the actual things that we're conforming to are wrong. So if we lived in the... We're going to find out what that vision of society that Archie's got is, but first of all I've got to go to Tess, because you had your hand up.
For a long time I tried to fit in with this one particular group of girls, which are like stereotypical Darlington girls, which doesn't work.
Yeah.
And just, it's not great, but as soon as you like, I mean, I grew up with, my brother's very, very different. He likes different things. He does politics and Latin like a freak, and he's going to China because he's weird. And
how is China weird?
He's
don't
weird.
Speak Latin in China.
Yeah. And I always grew up wanting to be. I mean, he was different, and I always wanted to do that, but I never felt the opportunity to, because I was surrounded by the wrong people. But once you start like actually embracing and not forcing yourself to be different, it changes everything.
So for some people, I guess what I'm picking up from there, that it's truer to yourself to be different. I'm going to come to Emma. Your new person's got the hand up, so I've got to favour them.
Do you think that some people feel more pressurised than other people to conform? That some people, because some people get bullied, some people don't.
Okay, so it's about whether you're getting bullied or whether you're getting flack for actually...
It's about how you feel and how you react to how you feel.
Yeah. I mean, what about you? Do you feel like you need to conform?
I've long passed that.
Yeah. I mean, did you, when you were a bit younger?
The only good thing about getting into your 50s and 60s and later is that you don't give very much of
you don't give about anything. Well, there was somebody sitting here, but they've gone now. Who was it? And Scarlett, give us a final thought.
Don't swear, Luke, you're a bad person.
What do you think about this? Do you feel you need to be the same as everyone or different, or it doesn't really matter, you don't think about it?
You're beautiful just the way you are, it doesn't matter.
That
Okay, okay. Thanks very much. A round of applause as well. And we've got a spare seat as well. Someone can come and take over this seat. So there was a few different hands up, and I got confused now about who. I'll come to you in a second. You've had your hand up for ages, then you, Aidan. Yeah.
I think conforming for a lot of people is easier because it's kind of not really normal because everyone's different, but like conforming to a certain like stereotype is a lot easier.
Yeah.
Because it's more easy for you to be like fit in, if that makes sense.
Okay, so less thinking in a way.
Yeah, but also if you want to be different, it's more you because you're never going to be happy if you're not being who you actually are.
Okay, so it's more effort, but it's more you as well. Aidan, what's your point if you've forgotten now?
I've forgotten, yeah.
Okay, over here.
You know what I would say? Some people just like this, you know, conforming and stuff. Some people just don't want you to conform because they don't like you, and so there's like an excluded group who end up conforming to this, to the identity of being excluded. So in the end, you conform to either being in or out.
Okay, so you always have to conform to something, is what you're saying. Either in or out. You're kind of scratching your head. Was that a reaction to that, or is that just an itch?
Enjoying listening.
Okay.
We're going back to the Matrix, conforming.
Yeah.
No, it's quite simple. Conforming for the rest of the humans was very simple. There was no resistance, but for resistance, for not conforming, there was a lot of resistance, but it was more rewarding.
Yeah.
And eventually they reaped the rewards of not conforming, and they succeeded.
Okay, so once again, it's the Matrix informing our worldview.
Here's a tip for the younger people amongst us here.
Yeah.
There'll be times in your life where you really worry about what other people think about you. It happens to all of us, some people more than others. And all I'd say is people are spending a lot less time thinking about you than you are. And second to that, people rate a lot less what they think about you as important than you do. So just go and be yourself and you'll find you get a lot of love for that.
Okay, so it doesn't really, in a way, it doesn't really matter what people think about you because they don't
dwell on it.
They don't dwell on it, they just think it and it passes through their heads and out the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you look at somebody else and you don't think, oh my God, they're lovely, they're really attractive. You know, you think, well, are you judging me? Do you think I look attractive? You are judging yourself, so literally just be yourself.
I think, so we're saying we're a harsher judge on ourselves than other people are on us.
Just on a similar point, kind of the opposite of that. You're not staring at someone thinking, gosh, they just look ridiculous. You're thinking about yourself again. So it's both ways.
So you're actually thinking about yourself much more than anyone else.
I mean, as being said young person, I don't think it's, to be honest, I don't really care. Like, not in a negative way, it's like, oh, I don't care what anyone thinks of me. I personally, it doesn't faze me because what other people's opinions of me is none of my business. And if someone dislikes me, you're not going to please everyone. But I think at the moment, the people who are actually being the harshest on people are ourselves. And people don't look at her and think, oh wow, she looks horrendous. She's thinking that of herself. It's not what other people think.
Okay, I mean that's the theory, but do we actually really do that in practice? Do we actually, are we so immune to the way that people look at us or judge us, even if it is just a fleeting thought in their heads?
I take the point that we don't dwell on stuff, and I think I make judgments about people all the time, quite horrible judgments. We don't tend to think in a beautiful world. If you look at the news, we watch horrible news.
So you're quite cynical about
I think most people are. Look at them, look at the way they are, and it's always quite negative. But the reality of the situation is that all of the judgments that we make about people and the way that our life is shaped is often by very, very small details. So it's the first 4 or 5 seconds of an interview as to whether I'm going to give someone a job or not.
Yeah.
So the idea that you do not dwell or do not prepare and do not make the most of the opportunities when you meet people, and that you are somehow above those opportunities, I think is farcical. To dwell on them is foolish.
Yeah.
Because they missed opportunities, but not to be prepared and not to make the most of them.
Okay, so it is important how other people judge you, but it's so quick. It's the first 5 seconds, and that's it. So you've got to get those first 5 seconds right, which I obviously failed to do.
I think there's a great moment as well, though, in everyone's life where you start to choose comfort and practicality over style in certain situations. And mate, honestly, I didn't plan. I'm literally sat here thinking.
He hasn't got there yet.
I haven't got there, and I literally bought like a waterproof that wasn't very stylish, but it's so comfy. And I left it at home and chose this because I thought it was going to be light showers this weekend. Instantly regretted it. But I think it's a great moment where adults just start going, I don't really care what other people think, and you start wearing it.
Okay, so there's a kind of moment that's kind of like a sort of singularity that you go through where you just don't care anymore, and I think what's that?
I guess I apologise first that all roads lead back to your wonderful shirt, but it's just such a wonderful kind of milestone for me in these conversations. Talking about the kind of the things that we do to change ourselves, the things we do for change. It's a wonderful song. I've been sat here thinking a lot looking at your shirt, I'll be honest. And
I've sort of forgotten about it, actually.
I have a reasonably similar one, but it's different enough that I know it's mine. We wouldn't get them confused, that's fine. And for a long time I've been thinking, why didn't I put that on today? Because then we could have talked about me for a little while. And I don't know whether that's my ego that needs feeding. It probably is. It definitely is. It is. But I just wanted. This is confessional more than anything. I just wanted to bring that up to you, Mikey.
A forum for you. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm picking up what you're putting down as a point over here.
I really hate to use the term the younger generation, but clearly I'm not of the younger generation, and I wonder if it's not just life is just not revolving so much about how we look. Is it not more about how we make one another feel in our interactions, rather than judging them on how they look?
Yeah.
Really quick.
Yeah.
People don't remember what you do to them; they remember how you make them feel.
Okay.
But then what you do might make them feel something.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Getting the opportunity to make someone feel something often depends upon how you look. And that's it. For somebody to want to interact with you, do you know what I mean? You've got to look in a certain way, otherwise they're going to walk straight past it in the street. But in terms of what you were saying about this idea that somehow you reach a point in your life where you turn around and go, who cares? That's nonsense. I hope it does work out for some other people. But there's been research where the most stressful day in a middle-aged man's life is wear what you want to work day. Because fellas at a certain point have started to wear tracksuit bottoms, shorts, whatever t-shirts they want to be able to do gardening and stuff, and you stop all your going out gear, and the next thing you know you have to turn up at a workplace where people are dressed as in much more fashionable, and you've just suddenly lost all that because you thought that you didn't care, and then suddenly there's an opportunity to care. You and I are both 77.
Okay, alright, so... Okay, well, I mean, in the festival, it's a bit like a wear what you want to work day. It's apart from when it's raining, because then you just... No, but I only wear this shirt. It's actually important. Let's talk about me for a change. Even though it's against the rules of Talkaoke, I only wear this shirt when I'm doing Talkaoke, so that when I get out of Talkaoke, I can take it off and wear something else. Okay.
I feel like how Will is it? Yeah, was saying about how you reach a point. I do actually agree, because I feel like I'm like probably a good 10 years younger than you, I imagine, or 8. I don't know.
Yeah. I would go for 8.
Probably 8. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
24. I don't know. I'm under 10 years old. But what I'm saying is, like, I feel like I've reached that point already. Like, you know, I don't really care what people think.
Yeah. Okay, so
I don't think anyone should.
Is there a kind of? It's a bit like, you know, going through the black hole, going through the singularity that you go through, and then you come out the other side, and nobody care. You don't care whatever anyone else thinks anymore.
I think I agree, because I'm like one of those people who spent so much time trying to please somebody else that there's like no point anymore. Like, you just do what you be, who you want to be, and then if people aren't happy with that, then you just move on. Like.
Okay, so there is a point. But it could come in a different time of life.
Nip off, Mikey.
Okay, final thought.
Final thought. Thanks for having us. And if you're about at 5:20, come to that big red tent there. I'm doing 10 minutes of spoken word. It's going to be amazing. I'll see you soon. Good to speak to you, fellas and girls. See you soon.
Are you gonna think about what you wear, or are you just?
I would, Mikey, but to be honest, the weather on the ground means I can't wear the shoes I normally would on the stage. So you see, that thought went through my head.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm just going to wait around here. Have you heard what she said to you, mate? There. Why is it terrible? The colour. I like it, to be fair. If you're at 5:20, I hope you're busy, but everyone else, feel free to come down. See you later. Bye.
Okay.
Do you think it's a generational thing? Do you think growing up in different generations, there was different values placed on different things? Because I agree, I think definitely a lot of, like my dad always instills in me the importance of how other people perceive you, and I do agree to an extent. I think personal and professional life are slightly different though when it comes to style or what you wear, for me personally, but I just wonder, it seems to be a little bit of disparity between generations, whether or not there was some sort of value placed on it.
Okay, I'm going to come to you in a minute, Steve. We've got a couple of new faces at the table. Let's quickly get your names. What are your names?
Callum.
And?
Iris.
Callum and Iris. I'm going to go over here to the guy that it doesn't really matter what his name is. But basically what we're talking about, is there like a kind of like journey through the black hole where you just don't care what other people think about you, how they perceive you, what you wear, and you come out the other side and you just don't give a whoop about whatever. And that's what we're talking about now. Let's get a final thought from you.
Thank you very much. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, we're here all weekends. Thank you. Better than Aidan's shirt, isn't it? Okay.
Isn't there this whole generational divide where, with fashion and trends, that the things that the parents do like, the children try to non-conform to it, so they end up not liking it. And then, of course, when they then have children, the children end up not liking the things that the parents didn't like their parents doing, so their parents actually like doing the same things the grandparents did.
I see, yeah. Well, do you think your grandparents are cooler than your parents?
Depends, really. I mean, like, they're better at some things than others.
Yeah.
But style-wise, I'd say my parents are better than my grandparents.
So your parents have got better style. What's your name again? Callum.
Yeah.
Callum's saying that his parents have got better style than his grandparents, and therefore he'll have better style than his parents. So sorry, that shot your theory down. Yeah. Sorry, but maybe it's just too small a sample.
I mean, I've got quite some people say eclectic style, and I mean, like, I've got stuff, like, I wear stuff that was my dad's and stuff that was my mum's, and like, it's weird because it's like there was like the 90s and the 80s makeup in the tent, and like, it's weird how like trends come back after a certain like time.
Right.
It's weird how we have trends as well.
80s and 90s are in at the moment. I'm kind of pleased about that. I just need to dig out those old items.
Mikey, I'll be honest, this is almost another confession for you.
It's like confessional corner.
This is helping me a lot, this is honestly.
Yeah.
A long time, like talking about liking your grandparents' clothes and things like that. It was a little while ago now that my grandma kind of piled all the clothes she didn't want to wear anymore into a nice charity bag and asked if we could take that over to the Samaritans, one of the lovely charities that do brilliant work. And I saw a fleece at the top of that bag. And I have no shame in saying that I take that fleece and I regularly wear that fleece.
Right, okay. Is that what you're wearing now?
I mean, this isn't the one right now, but I can see why you'd confuse that, yeah. But I enjoy a nice old hearty fleece. I enjoy a nice kind of striped shirt. I enjoy Fila, Reebok,
There is a relationship between you and your grandparents' clothing. You had a point a long time ago, Steve. Is it still relevant, or is it?
My only point was in terms of what was being said about generational changes and stuff, and I was just looking at your trainers which had Nike on, and the idea of not giving a damn but you're going to wear a brand, and I was sort of just having a quick squiz around the table, and I was wondering who hasn't got a brand on in terms of somewhere along their label, who hasn't got a brand on somewhere at home. And the thing is, whatever look that you're rocking.
Luke's been wearing those since 1983.
I struggle to see beyond the idea that we don't give a damn.
Okay, so talking about judgment, I can feel the weight of Will's judgment on me. He's judging me. He's going, oh, look, Mikey's run out of steam now. He's not making any sense. He's forgetting who everybody is. He's not really summing it up properly. I could do a much better job than that. So I'm gonna.
I feel like you're projecting on me.
Maybe I am projecting. I don't know, but I'm not sure. But I think it's time to swap. So let's welcome Will back in. we're introducing a new generation of talk show hosts again. So I'm going to jump out. I think Tess has a point in there, so just hold on to that one. We'll keep it live.
Well, I think that's a great point. Yeah, round of applause for Mikey. That's great. But I think Steve's got a great point there around branding. So is it a little bit hypocritical of us to say that we don't care when actually all of us do really enjoy wearing branded items, getting involved with stuff? But first of all, before we do that, I didn't catch everyone's names, so we're going to do a quick round of names. I'm going to come start over here.
Okay, honestly, confessional time. My name actually is Robert, and I've been lying to all of you.
I thought it was Daryl.
Yeah, you fell for it. It's your fault. You fell for it.
Well,
fool.
Rob, it's lovely to meet you. Let's go around.
Paul.
Paul.
Emma. Tess.
Iris.
Callum.
Callum.
Stephen.
Sorry,
Mikey.
Stephen, yeah.
Luke.
And
Luke again.
To be really enjoyed.
Give us a final thought. Hold on. Give us a final thought before you go.
No, I'll sit down.
I'm also Luke.
Luke as well.
Archie.
Tom. And Tom and
Daniel.
Nice to see you, Daniel. So we're going back to what Steve was saying about maybe we all say we don't conform, but we're all wearing branded items. So clearly we do care a little bit. I'm going to pass it up to you. Do you want to hold the mic?
It's a bit of a question. Do you think men's fashion is like
too expensive?
Do you think women have more of like an opportunity to be different and express that through their fashion than men?
I don't know. I'm going to flip it back to you. What do you think? Do you think men have less opportunity for fashion than women?
I think there's only really two extremes of like men's fashion. You can either be extremely or extremely generic.
So is there a lack of options for men in the fashion world? Is that the question we're asking?
Yeah.
What do you think? It's Emma, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have like a complete similar opinion, but also like really different. Because like if you look around the table here, a lot of people look really really different.
Right.
But I think I know what you mean. There is a lot of like there's like really two like big extremes of different like men's fashion, as you say. But like I think there's the like. I don't know, there's so many like bits in between, but I think the two big extremes is like kind of roadman. Yeah, roadman or like
is that where that's like where you're wearing a big puffy jacket the whole time, isn't it? Yeah. Like it doesn't matter if it's raining or sunshine, it's big puffy jacket.
And then there's like the trendy, but it's not really trendy because that's kind of a weird word to use, but you know what I mean.
Edgy, okay.
Hip, hip, that's
great. We're turning to a thesaurus here as well, getting loads of different synonyms up.
I was at a festival in France last week, and someone came up with this theory about, because I was wearing a similar flowery shirt, and loads of people, because the weather was a lot better, loads of people were wearing like these flowery Hawaiian, or, you know, and somebody said that is actually men wanting to wear dresses but kind of going halfway. It's like a halfway to sort of like
funky shirts.
Yeah, to kind of like expressive, more expressive wear, but that's still kind of male.
Funky shirts, but it's in dresses in the Talkaoke.
Well, it's a kind of halfway to dresses. That's what the this person's theory was.
What do you think? Do you think that would be well received, Stephen, if somebody turned up in a dress to the office? Would that be something that would be more acceptable, or would it be more judged? What do you think?
I don't think it'd be acceptable. I think you'd be totally judged on it. I think, but nowadays you couldn't. If somebody turned up in a dress, you wouldn't be able to say anything. Otherwise, you'd be sacked if you were one of the bosses because of the gender fluidity. In terms of schools have now got to have similar uniforms for boys and girls. They've done away with skirts and that sort of stuff. But in terms of your shirt, I'm guessing you bought it from one of the local high street shops, but without being judgy. But what I'm saying is, you wouldn't have been able to buy that unless somebody a few years ago in some fashion house had decided that we were going to go down the road of these sorts of bold and bright shirts. It weren't your decision. You walked into a shop and gone, I'm going to have that, but it was never really your decision. It was only what they chose to sell you.
So maybe I've been manipulated by the big sort of capitalist machine that's pumping out these things to make us feel individual, but actually even being extremely sort of funky or edgy or quirky, as we were saying, makes us a bit more of a conformist perhaps.
I kind of figured out what I was trying to say. I was kind of thinking, like, do you envy, like, as men, do you envy how much option there is, or like chance there is for women to like express themselves like through fashion?
Right. What do you think? Do you think men need more options in fashion? Do you think that women have all the glory? Come sit down. That's what we're talking about. Come get involved. Bring your beer over. Come sit down. What's your name?
Matthew?
Matthew, what do you think, Matthew? Do we need more options for men to have fashion in the workplace or to have fashion in their personal lives?
Nah, not really.
Not really? What do you think we need?
I don't like having to make many choices.
You don't like...
A suit or a pair of jeans or a pair of shorts, yeah.
Jeans, shorts, minimalist, out the door we go, yeah?
Yeah.
We've got a thought. I'm going to come over to Archie, see what you're saying.
Going back to what Mikey said about dresses and that.
Yeah.
I'm going to drop a big bombshell now, right? I've worn dresses before. And I'm not a cross-dresser, because I'm like... far too young to make that decision. But what I'm saying is, they're really comfortable.
Right.
And, you know, why should I be judged that I'm wearing women's clothing if it makes me feel comfortable?
So do you think that men should be judged if they want to wear women's clothes, or should they be able to wear what they want to wear?
I look really good.
Well, a lot of women wear a lot of men's clothing, so I don't see why men shouldn't be able to wear clothing, because it's like, it is comfy.
That's sort of how skinny jean trend started, wasn't it?
I'm not a big fan of skinny jeans, but...
okay, maybe, alright, let's back away from that one. What are we saying over here then?
I went into Leeds like a month ago and bought quite a lot of clothing to start taking it from me. And wearing it herself with her friends.
So that's happening now. It's not just your sister nicking your sister's clothes, but brothers are nicking sisters' clothes, sisters are nicking brothers. What's that, Rob? Or Daryl? Or doesn't matter anymore?
I'm not a bigot, but it's called women's clothing.
Right.
And it's called men's clothing.
Is women's clothing?
I mean, that's from a while ago when people were not all cool and accepting. You know, and everyone shot people and stuff. But like. Men's clothing and women's clothing is branded differently. It's branded towards men and it's branded towards women. It's like in like Playmobil. You get pink Playmobil for girls and you get blue Playmobil for boys.
Does that go back to what Stephen was saying? Are the media and the capitalist machine controlling what we wear, manipulating us into thinking that's what a man should be, that's what a woman should be?
If you go back far enough, pink was the boys' colour and blue was the girls' colour.
Right, okay.
And society, the judgment is never yours. The thing is, you walk into a shop and there is such wide range, you believe there's a wide range, but there isn't a wide range, and the choices were never ever yours.
Right, so the choice isn't yours. What are the thoughts?
I think it's like there was a kid earlier, like yesterday, and you could tell he was a boy, but he was wearing like pink wellies.
Sorry about that.
And like it's the whole, like, as kids, like, you don't really get the choice, like you were saying, and also as children you're like, so you can be manipulated and like you're not young enough to make your own like decisions, like right. It's all pushed into your head.
So we are being pushed in a direction. Daniel, do you feel like you're being pushed to wear certain things by shops, by society?
I haven't put much thought into that, but a lot of clothing, for example, isn't branded towards boys or branded towards girls. It's branded towards styles that people assume boys all like and assume girls all like.
So it's all a bit of a guessing game. We think, oh, this is going to make us look a bit more manly, or Luke, you're standing a bit quiet. You're looking a bit sort of processing it, reflective. What do you think on the situation? Do you think we need more options?
I'm 42, mate. I'll buy anything.
You buy anything at this stage?
As long as it fits.
As long as it fits?
I mean, it's got to go around that, it's got to go around that. If it fits, and I don't look fat and ugly, great.
So it doesn't matter if it's men's or women's, as long as you feel good in it, you feel happy, that's the most important part. Emma, what do you think about this?
I think as long as you're comfortable and you like the way that you look, rather than what you think other people will like that you look, if that makes sense, I think it's alright. You wear whatever you want as long as you're happy in it.
Interesting, so it goes back to that comfort side. As long as you're happy in what you're wearing, then other people just need to be accepting of that situation, do you think? What do you think, Tom?
I was thinking that fashion is actually controlled by the general public. As soon as a certain proportion of the public require an object in fashion, a market opens up for that object, and people rush in to make I don't know, a dress for a boy.
Right.
That's how that works.
I just some good points. But I want to just jump back as well, because you mentioned that you don't want any style, you don't want any choice. Do you feel that you're being forced to make choices?
I just what's easy for me on a morning.
What's easy for you? Just slap it on and get out as long as you're happy?
A lot of my colleagues go to work in jeans and a t-shirt. I just like to put on a suit. It's easy.
Right, okay.
No, I don't have to think on a morning.
Eliminating that choice, getting it straight out the door, more thinking time. Now I'm going to come to Archie, we'll come to Stove and then to Iris as well.
I was just wondering if I could ask the adult men opinions on my confession of wearing dresses. So, Luke, how do you feel about that?
About what?
Me wearing dresses.
Crack on, mate.
Crack on, there we go. Positive message.
And what do you think, Steve?
What was the occasion that you were wearing it for?
Well, you know, it started off my sister wanting someone to practice makeup on, and you know, slippery slope. So I ended up, genuinely, I just ended up like one time just wearing like the full shebang, and
To where though?
No, I was just at home. I know. It's like, I don't go on the street.
The fact that you said I don't go on the street removes the fact that you're not bothered about it. You've told me I was in the house. I was wearing a dress, wasn't it, Brill? But I never went anywhere. And you, but you haven't.
I will.
Well, let's do it then.
Do it. I will.
I feel like you're going to run back to the tent, get out a funky dress and come back in a second. And I look forward to that. But I did promise I'm going to come over to this side of the table. Iris is next, weren't you?
My brother, when he got into like year 6 and everything, he started wearing like really designer brands, like my friend Callum here,
right, okay.
who wastes hundreds of pounds on clothes. And some of his hoodies, like people say things like, oh no, boys' hoodies are for boys because they're baggier and all that stuff.
Right.
But half of my hoodies are his hand-me-downs. They're easier to wear.
So it's easy for that sort of transference between men's and women's clothes at the moment.
I feel like there is a big thing like in society to say like this is not what happens everywhere, but I think there's certain.
Stephen, are you off as well?
I think there's certain assumptions made. If say you went out in a dress, I think there's certain assumptions that would be made about you, which you wouldn't want made about you.
So maybe
it's just how society works. So that's what people are going to think.
So maybe you might not care, but there are going to be assumptions made. There are going to be judgments, and I'm going to come to Stephen. You're off. You've dropped some real wisdom today. Do you want to give us a final thought?
If it makes you feel any better, I wore a dress to a nightclub 20 years ago.
There we go. See, all right. Dropping the truth bomb. So where do we go from this? Come sit down. This table's free. We're talking about men's clothes, talking about women's clothes. What should you be able to wear? What do you want to do? Are you shooting off as well, Emma? Yeah. Give us a final thought before you go.
I think wear whatever you want, as long as you're happy. It doesn't matter.
Nice one. Give him a round of applause. It's been absolutely great to enjoy it. Callum, the man that has spent hundreds of pounds, been called out by his friend Iris. Do you feel? I'm going to come to you in a sec, Daniel. I just want to see. How do you feel about this? Do you feel that you should be able to wear what you want?
I feel that you can wear what you want because on my final day of primary school, me and my mates all dressed up in dresses and danced to Beyonce on the school talent show with lipstick on, and the whole school enjoyed it. And we got some teachers like disapproved of it, and we're just like, we can do what we want.
So maybe I'm going to come to Charles. I promise I'll come to Daniel next.
Yeah, I was just wanting to clear something up. I'm assuming it's your parents wasting hundreds of pounds on designer clothes for you.
They gave me the money for my birthday, and then I bought stuff.
Right. Okay. So if it's your money, it's your choice, kind of thing. Now we'll come over quickly.
I think we should consider clothing as a kind of language. So obviously, if you've got more expensive, effectively like it's more expensive words to say with more expensive clothes, but like the male vocabulary in terms of clothing is small and probably could do with being expanded one way or another.
Yeah.
It's a language, I think.
And I feel like we keep coming back to this time and time again. We need more men's clothes. We need more options. Is that what you were going for before? Is it a different point?
I don't know. I was just kind of asking about it because it's like it's something that you just never really talk about. I think, but also what Callum was saying about his being at school. My mum's deputy head at a school, but as teachers you can't push your own opinion. You can't talk about your own opinion. So even if they did disapprove of it, they couldn't say anything because teachers can't have their own opinion. So
anybody in education shouldn't be able to tell kids what to say. Are you going off, Luke? Are you leaving again? You tried to sneak off last time.
It's been nice to see you all.
A round of applause for me. Enjoy the rest of your day, pal. But yeah, like you're saying, maybe teachers shouldn't have an opinion on what young people wear. It should be their choice. Pardon, what was that?
They should keep it to themselves so that they don't upset the other students.
Okay, now, before we carry on with this, we've got a new face at the table. What's your name?
Fern.
Fern, lovely to meet you, Fern. We're talking about what men and women wear at the moment. Should we be allowed to wear dresses? Should women be allowed to take men's clothes? Should we just do away with these gendered items? I'm going to come over. Archie's been waiting a while. I'm going to come to Archie.
You know how Emma dropped that massive gem of wisdom before she left, where she said assumptions would be made?
Yeah.
I do feel like that's a really important point. So what if a man wants to go walking out in the street in a dress because it's comfortable? Some people might assume that he's, I don't know, a transgender, or is questioning his sexuality, or is questioning his gender identity. No, it's just comfortable.
Right, interesting. So maybe what we wanted to wear and gender shouldn't question our sexuality, or it shouldn't question who we like. It's more about just wanting to be comfy, having a bit of relief. I'm going to come to Iris. What are your thoughts?
So when Callum said about his school
Talent show. Yeah, I think the reason the teachers disapproves because they were on the ground twerking and the guy.
That was a friend. I didn't.
Torme. And Torme wore like a giant fake butt on his like back, which made him look.
So maybe it's less about the outfit in that situation and more about the actions in which you were doing it, perhaps. Now I'm going to come over here first. Remind you of your name again, Charlotte.
Tess.
I'm getting there. There's a lot of names, a lot of days.
I think as people, we just read like into stuff too, like way too much. Like Luke was saying about emails, like people just read into things too much. Like even like a simple text like okay, like if you literally say okay, people like can think that like you're being short or snappy or like trying to be rude. But I don't think it's getting judged. I think it's people just like reading into things too much and like saying on the like visual, like a society based on visual, like if you're not smiling, people read into it too much and think that you're upset. Like we just read into things way too much.
I'm going to intercept Mikey. Daniel, do you have a point before? No? That's right. Mikey, we'll come back to you.
Just on the point about Callum and the teachers disapproving, and some other people said teachers shouldn't be giving their own opinions. I think teachers, like everybody else, have got a right to have an opinion, and we've all got a right to have an opinion.
Right, the teachers should be able to.
So why shouldn't the teacher give their opinion? Just as we all are giving our opinion around this table.
It's an interesting point. We do have a new face at the table there. What's your name?
Ruth.
Ruth, lovely to meet you, Ruth. At the minute, we're talking about a lot actually. Maybe you can share some wisdom. You're a teacher. This is perfect. We're talking about whether or not. Okay, Mikey, it might be time to switch back. I'm not prepared for this. All right, here we go. So, what we've been talking about is should teachers have opinions? Should men be judged for what they wear? Should they be able to wear dresses to school? Where do we go from this? What are your ideas? Do we think we read too much into stuff, and should teachers be able to say what they really think?
No, I think teachers shouldn't have an opinion. They should be unbiased and give both sides of the story.
Right, okay, yeah. So it should be a chance for young people to find the truth themselves. They should just be there to facilitate that conversation, like me and Mikey doing today.
Absolutely. You give both sides and they ultimately make up their mind. Eventually they might change their mind from day to another, but it's up to them to decide what they believe in.
I think that's a great point. We're going to come over to Tom. What are your thoughts?
In logic, doesn't a skirt make more sense for a man to wear? Because it ultimately is so much less restricting than a trousers.
Right. So do you think skirts were originally designed for men? And
the Scottish have it. The Scottish have it right. Actually.
Yeah, right. So you think men should be able to wear skirts more often?
No, just in general, they just should.
Just should wear skirts.
Yeah.
I'll come to Mike. I want to come to Luke because it is Luke, isn't it?
It is Luke.
Nice,
yes, nice to meet you.
What are your thoughts?
I guess I want to expand on the kind of the role of a teacher a bit more as an influencer, as someone, a social media. It's such a balanced argument that you have to give to it, because on one hand they're in a position of power, and other than your parents, they're the people you see day in, day out, that you put on this kind of pedestal of they are to teach me.
Like
they are exactly, yeah, definitely. And you have to learn from them. But then on the other hand, they don't want to be people that really push their opinions on you, and that can be dangerous to young impressionable minds especially.
Right, so it's like a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah, because there are certain things you want to steer people away from in general. So
there is an idea that they are trying to push an opinion, but it might not necessarily be the teacher's opinion or what they've been told to educate on. Tess, what are your thoughts?
For me personally, I think that the whole like parent, like saying your parents are one thing and then your teachers are another, having two parents growing, like you kind of have both those like people in one place, and it is really weird. Like you're saying that you see your teachers every day, but then you also see your parents the exact same amount, and it is a really weird dynamic to have, because like you kind of how much you value your parents' opinion almost becomes how much you value your teacher's opinion.
So do you think the parents should be less opinionated and let you figure things out more for yourself?
I think everyone should just be less opinionated. I think like life's just surrounded by people being so opinionated and like liking pictures on Instagram and comments. The fact that there's that option in the first place, it's just ridiculous.
So we need to get away from what other people think about, focus more on ourselves. We've got some new faces. What are your names?
Talkative Timmy.
What was that?
Talkative Timmy.
Talkative Timmy, nice to meet you.
Scarlett.
Scarlett, lovely. And at the back there? Hey, what was that? Kevin, lovely to meet you as well. All right, now I'm going to come over. Archie's been waiting a while.
Wait for this bombshell. Both my parents are teachers.
Right.
No.
I feel like you've deflated Archie just a little bit.
You've just ruined it. No. No. Yeah, that's literally just. No. Anyway, basically, but I feel like they've both done their roles. Like they've managed to separate the roles, if you know what I mean. So like you've got their opinions at home are completely different to their opinions at school because they're not supposed to have opinions.
Right.
Especially since my mum was an RS teacher, so I was like, you can't have any opinions there.
So
it
it
was
goes
like
back to what you were saying. You've got to almost remove yourself from that position when educating.
it's just like. Yeah, they are kind of, in my eyes, teachers and parents are kind of, I value their opinions exactly the same. Like,
right, okay, so you put them on the same level.
Are you at the school they teach at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's gone now, but she left when I was in like year 8 or something, I don't know.
Right, okay, interested.
Back to like sexualities and things, my friend said to me that,
You've missed a lot, Aidan, we'll catch you up, don't you worry, mate.
She said that gay people and like lesbian and bi people aren't meant to happen because if like we were made for it to be a man and a woman, why are there gay people?
Right, okay, so who said that?
Jessica, not
Jessica. So actually there is a point here that if man is created as a man and woman's created as a woman, should that, I mean that kind of ties in with the opinions quite strongly, doesn't it? You know, if a teacher feels that a man should be with a woman and a woman with a man, should they have the right to open up the ideas to other things? Should we teach about sexuality in school? Should we get more into it? What are your thoughts, Tom?
Well, there was a weird thing that went on in the scientific sort of community, and
let's get a final thought for you.
All right, okay. Essentially, the rising in gay people could be due to the rising population, and it's a natural human response to curb the explosive population.
Right. Okay. So maybe it's a fact of to stop sort of more people being born. That's why the LGBT community has risen up. Interesting point. I'm going to come to you for final thought though. Luke and Aidan sharing all sorts of wisdom today.
I'd like to think so. I guess I'd like to thank you all for the platform that you've given me to be reasonably confessional and personal, but at the same time I'm now going to go back and probably put my shirt on and hope that you notice that next time I come back.
Here we go. Is this another plug, Aidan?
Discussion is one of the most important things. Accepting other people's point of views, expressing yourself, having the platform to do that. Go home and talk to your families or whoever is at home about whatever you want to talk about. An open forum, it's the best thing. And the last thing you've got to do is write a poem, because that's the second most important thing. And come and see me at 5:20 in the red tent as well, if you're about. Red tent, 5:20. I'm only on 10 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, Luke and Aidan, give them a round of applause. Absolutely spot on. But I think it's an interesting point we've raised around, do we need more conversation around sexuality and lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender rights? What are the thoughts?
I think what you're saying about if you're a teacher and you have those opinions, it's kind of drastic, but you kind of shouldn't be if you have such strong opinions, you should either be professional enough to keep them to yourself if you want to go into that area of if you want to go into teaching, but if you can't be professional enough to keep those opinions to yourself, you kind of can't go into that area, because it's like
another skill that you need to have. Is that something that you need to be tested on in an interview, do you think? How much you can bite your tongue when somebody says something to you?
I think it's also something that you learn in school that they try and teach, especially in sport. If you've got a problem with someone, you need to be able to be professional enough to bite your tongue and just get on with it.
It's like turning the cheek, isn't it?
Yeah, know that something needs to get done and that it's for the greater good of everyone else. But if you can't do that, especially in teaching as well, it creates a lot of problems.
I think it's a good point. Rob, I keep thinking it's Daryl. Yeah, no. Rob, you're confusing me today.
I can't remember what I was well, I think it gets really bigged up. There's an actual issue around homosexuality, and people actually care. Because the people who are against it, well, there's a few really extreme people who are against it, but that's.
So you think it's been the issues and the problems that the LGBT
been created around it unnecessarily? There's no issue. There's a small group of people doing illegal.
So what you're saying is there's no issue with people being lesbian, gay, bisexual,
some people
transgender,
dislike
but people are making issues.
Some people
for no
dislike
reason.
it, but they're not. But some people some extreme people dislike it and will harm people, but most people who dislike it just have an opinion about it, and they shouldn't really be completely ostracised for, I don't know what that word means, for having that opinion.
I mean, you used it in the right context, so say it with conviction. Yeah,
but it's sort of counter sort of discrimination. They are having a bad opinion about them for their opinion, even though that's their opinion and they shouldn't really be.
It's an interesting one. I'm going to come over to Mike. What are your thoughts?
Well, I just want the thing about teachers. To me, I think teachers have got to be people, and I think if they're like being completely bland and sort of functional, then they're not really being people, and I think that's a bad example to set the kids to not be a person and not to be able to express yourself as an individual. I mean, I think it depends on the context. Like, for example, Will, you just don't say any opinions that you've got when you're in the middle of the table, but when you're on the
job, I'm just a man with a microphone.
Yeah, when you're on the outside, you say stuff that you think and you believe, and I think it's the same in a way with teachers. There should be a forum, a place where they should be able to say what they believe.
The reason I don't say what I believe, I'm trying to do smooth transitions like that microphone, so I can't concentrate on more than one thing at once. What's this? I'm going to go to Iris first. I'm going to give you a chance for a while.
And loads of people like say stuff like, "Oh, stop being so gay" and things like that, which is like offending those kind of people and stuff.
So maybe you can have that opinion, but we need to understand that what we say can impact others. So saying stuff like "that's gay" and using it as a very derogatory or negative thing can actually really affect. What was that? Sorry, Callum?
They don't actually know what the true meaning of that is. They're just using it in the context to say something's weird.
So it's about understanding how other people feel. It seems to be a bit of a hot issue. I'm going to come to Dan. You haven't heard from you in a while.
I'm just going to add to what Mikey said. A lot of the lessons that I most enjoy, it's with teachers that connect with the class, that interact with the class, that don't just get on with the lesson.
Right, okay. It's an interesting... I'm going to come over here. There's so many points to get round. I'm going to come to Arch first. Do you want to hold that microphone? I'm going to pour some water. Actually, I might.
Yes. It's mine now. All I want to say is that a bit like what Daniel was saying, I'm actually very interested in the opinions of my teachers, because I feel like an important part of learning and forming kind of relationships with your teachers in order to, learn more effectively is to kind of understand them, and so that they can understand you. And I know that's quite controversial because, I'm like 16 and I'm just a student, but it's like, I find it quite interesting to talk to people about, like, even if it's just talking about books and stuff.
So would you be interested in having like an extra class at school where you can just go and ask your teachers questions and know what their opinions are? I'm going to ask the teacher in the circle whether or not that would be something you would be willing to do. Would you have an extra class where they can just quiz you about your thoughts, your life experiences?
I mean, some schools have like a debating society, or where they can discuss different issues, where a member of staff might be there as an independent, all contributing. So I think it would be helpful for children to see that you're not just that person standing in front of them, because actually there's a lot more behind, but a teacher does feel restraint about giving anything of themselves, because they're there to pass information on.
Yeah. And do you think it's important to show, both, if you are going to engage in that conversation, show multiple sides of the argument as well, not just one teacher's opinion, but maybe loads of teachers' opinions that differ from one another?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe that is a big, long, convoluted question, that wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, it was really.
I sort of was trying to find my way with it. It didn't span out, but that's Talkaoke. It happens. We move on and we forget.
A bit controversial, but sort of the way to integrate LGBTQ ideas into society would be to not talk about it, in the way that the parades that they hold are very counterproductive and paradoxical to their cause. They're singling out their beliefs from everyone else's.
It's the wrong word. Sorry.
Ideas that they hold. If they single it out, then they're separating it from everything else. If nobody talks about it, no one discriminates from it, if it's just not mentioned and not acted upon, then there's no way it can be differentiated from other people.
But do you think it's the LGBT community that are doing that, or the other people that are singling out their beliefs?
Them holding their parades?
Yeah, but so do you think there should be no parades for LGBT communities?
No, but the holding a parade is counterproductive to integrating it into society.
Why do you think they're singling themselves out as well?
Yes,
in a sense?
that's because although it's promoting that, it's not promoting everything else, which is how you integrate.
Right, I think it's an interesting point. I'm going to come to Mike. He seems quite passionate.
I mean, I think the thing for me, having been to the Pride March a few times as a heterosexual guy, is that it's not actually just about, oh, we're the gay people, look at us. It's actually like we're actually in a wider community, and we've got all of our straight friends that come to support us too. And it's more about a kind of freedom of, of loving who you want to love than actually saying, look, we're different and we're special. It's more about saying we're part of a wider community, I think. I mean, I think in Berlin they don't call it Pride March, they call it Love Parade, because for them the focus is on love, it's not on
so maybe they just need
one particular identity or another.
Now, I'm going to come over to Rob, then we'll come over to Daniel as well.
Well, I think that the whole deal about getting offended by something is that they've got offended by something that they've sort of... that they've made up, because there's this gender, and they're like, oh, we want to be free. We want to be free from the chains of oppression, or is to be oppressed by what gender they choose, and then they make their own gender and identify themselves as something they've already created, in effect creating their own chains of oppression. They're just making themselves conform to that entire system.
Right,
and
okay.
Being offended by something isn't bad.
I wasn't quite ready for this conversation.
Yeah, well,
I'm not going to lie to you. We
offended by something. That's not
rapidly.
worse than it's going to happen. Is getting offended by something. And getting offended by something you've made up. It's like you're looking to get offended, and then you have a go at the people offending you.
So it's almost like they're bringing it on themselves, is what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. They're looking to get offended.
It's an interesting point. I'm going to come to Daniel as well, because you had a comment on this, didn't you?
You're talking about how it separates ideas from society. Well, it isn't just about... I'm just adding to that. It also isn't just about integrating into society. It's also celebrating everything that's happened to people's freedoms over the last few decades, because we've come a long way with accepting other people. But 50 years ago, we were extremely single-minded and short-minded.
So maybe it's about having a reminder of we weren't always this accepting, not to go back and regress to those times where we singled people out for who they were in their individual style.
I think it's better to, and I've learnt this from my gay friends, it's better to invent your own sexual identity than just have one by default.
To create your own identity?
Create your own identity, and that gay people generally have to do that, or I had to, in my generation, had to do that. So they had to think about it. What does it mean? What do I like? How do I want to identify myself?
But do you think people try and pigeonhole people when they try and create their own?
Well, maybe that's a point. But I mean, I think the bigger point is that you're actually thinking about who you are and what it means to have those, to have that identity.
Hey, it's interesting. I want to see what other people are going to come over Arch and Tess yet.
I, completely disagree with my counterparts here. I think, they have the entire history of the world minus about 30 years to make up for in terms of pride and in terms of being able to accept who they are in the LGBT community. And I think, if they want to go and march around and show off, well, not show off, but like kind of display how they feel, and I think they should be proud of it, and I think people should not judge them for it, because it's their choice, and it's something to be proud of, the fact that they can stand up and say that I'm not going to conform, like we were talking about earlier,
so it builds into what Daniel was saying. Remembering that they were ostracised, see, he was that word right, ostracised at some point from society, and it's about remembering actually this is who we are and we're proud, we're not going to be ashamed of that anymore. It's a good point where we're going to go contest next year.
I think that I know what you were saying about like growing, like making your own identity within like sexuality, but I think that's just a part of like growing up and like being a person. I think that's one tiny part of it, and I think that life's just so short, and that we should just like, no matter like what gender or sexuality you are, I think you should treat every day as like your own little pride parade, like back to like fashion and like being different, and like I think that like life's just short, especially when you're young, and like that's when you can have.
So you like need to celebrate who you are. I'm going to ask the younger generation as well, because you haven't heard from Scarlett and that. Yeah, you haven't heard in a while. Do you think you should be proud of who you are, regardless of what other people think? Do you think you should be able to go out and celebrate and say, "This is me"? A bit like Greatest Showman. See reference. What do you think, Scarlett? Do you think you should be able to be who you want to be?
Yeah, because even if people think that, even if people don't like you, who cares? If you want to be, if you can be who you want to be.
Yeah, so exactly. I think that's a really good point. Callum, do you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, like with the films coming out, like The Greatest Showman and songs like This Is Me, it's telling people that it's fine to be who you are and be proud of it. And the media is trying to introduce that it's fine to be who you are.
Right, so the media and the general public is now trying to be more accepting of people. What do you, remind me of your name, buddy?
Finn.
Finn, go for it, go for gold.
Well,
Got some knowledge.
Well, even if people don't like what you want to be,
yeah,
then but you can choose what you want to be.
Right, so even if people
it's
don't
your life.
Yeah, so you get to choose, and I think that's maybe one of the joys of life is what I'm getting from this. That you get to choose who you want to be, you get to decide your future. Go for it.
There's like varying degrees of expressing yourself. Like there might be some Tom, Dick or Harry who comes out about no fault of his own. Maybe he offends people, but he's just being himself.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then him suppressing himself would mean people don't get offended, but he's not being himself. That makes sense.
So should people not be allowed to express themselves if it's offending others? Is that sort of what you're asking there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a way, yeah.
I think it's in it. Well, I mean, I'm going to throw it back to you. What do you think? Do you think people should be able to express themselves if it offends other people?
I think there's
it's a bit scary when it gets flipped back on you, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. I think it depends because you don't really know what people are thinking. You don't really know what people's beliefs are. If they openly just express them, you don't know how that might offend someone. You don't know how that might influence someone, like Hitler or other people like that. You know,
that took a turn pretty quick, didn't it?
It did.
But I think it's a good point. Let's see what people think. Daniel, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think you should be able to express yourself if it offends others?
Well, it just comes down to people's opinions about freedom of speech.
Right. Okay.
Someone once said that some people love freedom of speech except when it contradicts their own beliefs.
Right. Okay.
And I think in some form that's far too widespread. Because people always support freedom of speech, but once people start disagreeing with them with whatever idea they're talking about, it becomes too offensive, and they don't agree with it.
I think that's an interesting point. I'm going to remind me of your name one more time.
Talkative Timmy.
Talkative Timmy. How could I forget? TT. All right. What are we saying then? Do you think people should be able to express themselves? It doesn't matter what other people think.
Yeah, because if you don't be yourself, then and you show to other people different things, they might think that you're someone else that who you're not. Right.
So they might not understand you, or they might misjudge you by accident. But should you be able to do that even if it upsets somebody else?
Yeah, because you're yourself and you have to show yourself what you can do.
Right, you're yourself, you have to be true to who you are. I'm going to try and turn this up. If it goes a bit askew, Mike is going to jump in.
Okay.
It's getting loud.
Yeah. I think we're a bit too scared of offending people when, we should say what we think. Offending people isn't that bad. It's like... like for example, going back to politics, Jeremy Corbyn at the moment is under a lot of criticism for being anti-Semitic. I don't think he's anti-Semitic. And people say things which might be offensive to Jewish people, but that doesn't mean they're anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic was like Hitler was anti-Semitic.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
There's a difference between intentionally trying to offend somebody and just you having a belief and it.
Yeah, I think the issue.
Accidentally.
The issue is that sometimes when someone says, "Oh, that offended me," then it leads to a very defensive conversation rather than, "Oh, well, why did this happen?" And maybe we can learn from each other.
Right. Okay. So it's about learning from those conversations. I'm going to come to Rob first of all. Rob, what are your thoughts?
Definitely expressing your opinion. What I think is the whole point of pride parades and everything is freedom of expression. They're allowed to express their beliefs and not beliefs. Their lifestyle choices and technically not choice. Their life. Their life.
Their feelings.
But
what they are.
Freedom of expression. Then surely bigots and racists and homophobic people should be able to express that because that's freedom of expression, and you're not allowing people to express their opinions is borderline fascism.
So should we, even if we disagree, even if it's against our laws, so if someone's racist or bigoted, should they be allowed to talk about how they feel? Should we give them a platform to talk about it? Iris, is a big question to answer. I'm coming to you though.
On the sort of the theme of being accepted and things, there's always like friend groups that have like some sort of like gang leader, and then there's always that person that can get everyone to do exactly what they want.
Right.
And then when they start doing that, everyone else starts acting like them, and then it's turning out to be like a group of her and then her mini-me's, and it's kind of annoying.
So it's like a mob mentality. One person leads the pack and changes others' opinions as well. When it comes to Callum, what are your thoughts?
I think it was a year ago or something, a comedian made a YouTube video called Nazi Pug, where his girlfriend said their dog was the cutest thing ever, and he ended up making his dog doing these things after saying things that Hitler would say, and then he ended up getting in loads and loads of grief from just something that he thought would be a bit of comedy, but then led to himself in hate speech crime. And
Talkative Timmy, you're leaving us. Where are you going? Do you want to give us a final thought before you go? What's your final thought? What are you doing next?
Going to see my mum.
Well, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you find your mum. Give Talkative Timmy a big round of applause there. Spot, and enjoy the rest of your day. So where do we go from this, guys? I'm going to turn me down a little bit because I'm getting quite loud. I'm going to come to Archie.
Personally, I feel like there's a line in comedy that shouldn't be crossed.
Right, okay.
I feel like Nazism and Hitler, it's, you know...
So we shouldn't make any jokes about Hitler anymore.
You get like, say for example, Jimmy Carr, he's got this really... I've seen a skit that he did, and it's like the most offensive levels of jokes.
Right,
and
okay, so how offensive can you get?
And the top one that he did was like a really, really offensive like Holocaust joke. But it didn't really get laughs from the audience, it just got like shock.
Right,
and I feel like there's certain levels that you can go to, maybe like, okay, yeah, like open-top cars in the JFK assassination. People make jokes about that all the time. But that's one guy, but we're talking about like 6.5 million innocent people.
So there's certain things in comedy that should be off the table. You shouldn't be allowed to talk about them. Yes, Mikey?
I mean, I think the more controversial you get, the more clever you need to be as a comedian. And so it's actually when people make unfunny jokes that it becomes offensive.
Right, okay.
So you can... the very, very clever comedians, I think, can deal with this controversial comedy.
So as long as it's
comedy,
funny,
it's
you can talk about whatever you want.
It's a huge risk because you can get it very wrong and offend a lot of people. But it's kind of part of that risk is what comedy's about, in a way.
Interesting. Do people agree? Should you be able to make jokes about everything? Does it depend on whether or not you're funny or good at your job?
There are like some jokes about like parents that have divorced, you know, like a dad leaves and then never comes back. And then my brother went to a show the other day, and it was something to do with how to be a dad and you leave and never come back to see your children. And that must really offend the people who that's actually happened to.
Right, okay.
As they probably maybe never met their dad.
So do you think that joke should have been told? Or should they just got rid of it?
I'm not sure. I didn't hear like the full actual joke, but my brother was just saying that it was kind of offensive to like dads who have done that, because there could have been someone sat there just like, oh damn, I did that.
And that kind of goes back to what you're saying about people feeling left out or ostracised. See, we're getting that word used good today. All right, but getting chucked up because people find it funny, but actually it's really affecting others. What are your thoughts, Rob?
Yeah, well, the Nazi Pug, the YouTuber is Count Dankula. It's a YouTuber I frequently watch. He has controversial opinions, but just because you watch someone doesn't mean you have the same opinions as them. He's basically, he just fights for freedom of speech, is what his big thing. He goes full, like, you should be able to say whatever you want, to whoever you want, and have no negative effects. He was going to be sent to prison. He was still fined about over £1,000, I think.
Right.
And the court cases lasted for about a year afterwards, and his YouTube and everything went down colossally. But I think that naturally, if people don't want to watch something, they won't, and they'll stay as a little niche thing, like metal. Not a lot of people like metal. It's not
good save there.
It's not
as
well for everyone. It's a niche genre of music because it's got specific.
So I think I'm trying to sort of like get this together.
Too specific will naturally be liked by less people. So I don't think you have to try to make it's some sort of...
You don't need to try and make it a big spectacle, You don't make it a taboo, it's just is what it is kind of a thing.
I remember about 19 years ago we were doing a Talkaoke and everyone was making jokes about cancer.
Right,
and then there's a really young guy, came and sit down at the table and said, actually I've had cancer. And everyone was like, whoa, sorry, we're really sorry about that. But actually he was like, no, I'm really... You know, I just hate kind of every time I say I've got cancer, everyone's kind of face just goes like drops, and they can't. You know, he was actually surprisingly encouraging of those jokes about cancer, because it meant that it's a topic that's now introduced into the conversation, and you can talk about it in a way without everybody kind of just holding his hand and just kind of saying, "Oh, that's."
You have what?
Well, look at this! Look at this!
But I think it's really good point. That caught me off guard. That's it.
So like, I know what you're saying about like the cancer jokes. See, one of my friend's dad, he's got cancer. It's like terminal, and there was a kid who was like, we were stood by the lockers, like, and he was making a joke, and he was like, "Oh, he said to her, 'Oh, your mum's got cancer,' and she was like, 'No, my dad does,' and everyone was just silent, and it was the complete flip of what you experienced. Like no one knew what to say, because it was like. Everyone was like, that's
sort of links us in what we're saying about taboo subjects.
Yeah.
Should we be talking about this more? Should we be trying to make light of it?
You just don't really do that because you don't know the outcome that could happen.
So maybe it goes back to the don't make these jokes because you don't know how it's going to happen. Come, Daniel, in fact, Daniel, I am going to come to you because I know you've been waiting a while. We've got a new face, I haven't spoken yet. What's your name?
Toby.
Toby, what are your thoughts on this, Toby?
Well, I think there's a fine line between making a joke and trying not to offend people, because then, like, if you're going to say a joke, you have to understand that people may be offended.
Right.
But you shouldn't be really saying it anyway.
So if you think I'm going to get in a bit of trouble for this, maybe you shouldn't have said it in the first place.
Yeah.
I think it's a good point, Toby. Daniel, though, you had a thought share on this.
Well, when it comes to...
You can hold the mics, right?
No, it's fine. When it comes to jokes about potentially offensive or taboo subjects, there's generally like two different types of people. People that want to make light of it and want to make jokes about it to make it easier to talk about, and some people who would get offended by it. And it can be for cancer, for example, two people could be majorly affected by cancer, whether it be themselves or a family member. But one could get offended by another person's joke, not realizing that they've gone through that as well, and just assuming that they're being offensive.
Right.
When the other person's trying to be light of it. It's just they failed to connect and realize the other person's point of view.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. Now, I am going to come over to you, but I don't know how it happened, but two new faces snuck up at the table and I didn't see. What's your name? Elliot, is it? Lovely to meet you. What's your name?
Jonathan.
Jonathan, what we're talking about, guys, is we've been talking about so many things, haven't we? At the minute, we're talking about should you be... yeah, it's not with clothing, but now we're talking about jokes and offensive jokes. Should we be allowed to make jokes about certain things? Should we not? Yeah, come sit down, Toby, it's fine.
I think that what you're saying about, like, just thinking that they've just got offended, I don't think we should have to... You shouldn't have to explain why you've been offended by something. You shouldn't have to justify, like, your own emotions. People should just let it go and just let people be. Just like, you shouldn't have to justify. If someone's like, "Oh, why are you getting so offended? It's just a joke." You shouldn't have to justify you
why
getting
you
offended.
Feel that
they
way.
should just let it go, because...
But which side should let it go? The person that made the joke or the person that's offended?
Because normally, from like that kind of scenario, it's normally someone makes the joke, that person's normally like apologetic for making the joke because it's offended someone.
Yeah.
But then there's also normally someone who kind of just like interjects into the conversation and just says, "Oh, just let it go. Stop being just don't be offended. It's just a joke." Like, they should just let it go, and people.
They need to be more accepting of the fact that someone's offended, and they need to almost take responsibility for what they've done as well, in a sense. Scarlett, what are your thoughts on it?
That's like a few years ago at Deershed.
What happened at Deershed a few years ago?
There was a comedian and everyone left the tent because everyone was getting offended by his jokes. And then he said to my mum, "Why are you leaving? It was only a joke."
Right, okay, so even there's controversy at Deershed. Do you remember what the
I
joke was
don't
about?
know. I wasn't there.
I don't know. We'll have to ask some of the organisers at some point. We've got a new face as well. I didn't catch your names either. What are your names?
Fen.
Fen, and what's your name as well?
Jimmy.
Jimmy, what's your take on this though? There you go, you can take my seat if you want. Popping over. We've got another one, there's a little bit of a bench there as well. I can perch on a bench if you want to squeeze in.
I don't want to go back in. I just think if we're going to talk about freedom of speech as well, that should apply to both sides of the argument. So if it's freedom of speech to make the joke, then it should be freedom of speech to get offended by that joke and say that you're offended by the joke.
So, repeat that one more time. Mikey distracted me and that was extremely rude of me, but I've got to be honest when I'm in the middle. Say that one more time. We're talking about about lager. You can't distract somebody when you're doing the job with lager as well. That was me going to Mikey. Sorry, say it again, Ben.
I think if we're talking about freedom of speech, that should apply to both sides of the argument.
Right.
So if we're saying that someone making the joke is freedom of speech, the other person has the freedom of speech to get offended by that joke.
So that person can make those jokes like they did at Dipshed, but also they've got to give the other people the opportunity to leave, and they can't complain if they don't like it. Archie, what are your thoughts on this? Always dropping knowledge.
I just want to put a little bit in French, if that's all right.
But you want to speak in French?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Go for it. Je ne sais pas, je ne comprends pas en français. I don't know, I don't understand. I speak German, it's very, very different.
I also speak German. Je dirais que l'humour est trop difficile.
You're going to have to translate this.
Il est préférable d'éviter toute l'humour. So basically what I'm saying is, I would say that humour is too difficult, and it's just better to avoid it completely.
Right, okay, so maybe we just need to get rid of all comedy then. There shouldn't be any comedy, because people are getting too offended.
Look, I like humour as much as the next guy, but it's, you know, it's just, if you don't want to offend people, just don't.
Yeah, Elliot, do you think people should be allowed to make jokes? Do you like jokes?
Yeah, because my dad makes a really funny one.
Your dad makes funny jokes, and do you enjoy those jokes?
Yeah.
So maybe we do need jokes, because it brings joy to people, it brings happiness. What are the thoughts? Where are we going to next?
Like, some, like people have, like, offended, like, British culture in a way, like, I don't know. Like, people, I don't know, people going straight to saying British people are chavs, and then saying that they wear, like, way too many contour lines and things like that. Sort of like offensive.
Kind of stereotypical though.
Yeah, exactly, very
Maybe we shouldn't be allowed to pick on people's stereotypes as well. Toby, what are your thoughts on this?
You can easily make jokes that aren't offensive, so I don't really agree that you should make offensive jokes as it can offend people, but
so you can make unoffensive jokes?
Yeah, like why don't people do that so it's funny for everyone and not just targeting one group?
So it's about including people as well. I think it's a good point. I'm going to come to Rob. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, it's the same thing. I think if a comedian makes edgy jokes, then people who don't want to watch him don't have to watch him.
Right,
people who do want to watch him can watch it because it's their type of humour. Everyone has a sense of humour. If a comedian appeals to a person's sense of humour, they shouldn't be.
That kind of goes back to what Tess and Scarlett was saying, though, wasn't it? It was the people have the right to leave. They don't have to watch, but then that comedian can't be offended if they do leave.
It's not like he. I think maybe he probably wasn't the right comedian for a family festival. If people are leaving for his jokes,
sounds like it. Yeah.
I think maybe he might have tried something different or something, but. People will watch that type of comedy. Like people watch the YouTuber who made his dog into a Nazi.
Yeah.
Because they find that thing funny. But some people find things funny, and other people get offended by it. But being offended isn't going to kill anyone. It's not. Being offended isn't.
Offended's just being offended. You can be offended. It's not going to hurt you or kill anyone. Archie, thoughts?
Might I just say that you know, you were saying about like jokes about the British culture. When we get time, can we come back to the British culture?
Yeah, I mean we can go to British culture now. This
right.
is
Can I just lay down a few like reasons why I don't like British culture?
Go for it.
You know, we seem to think that we like, you know, the monarchy. Yeah, don't even get me started. No. What I'm saying about it is that.
I mean, we can go there if you want to. Do we need to get rid of the monarchy? Don't abort! Don't go down that path.
All I was going to say is Russia 1975. But what I would say is that like Brexit.
Right.
Really, it really boils down.
Right. First of all, you realise what you started now. You've dropped the B-bomb, alright? When you drop that B-bomb, Brexit, the table goes a bit berserk, alright? Everyone wants to... See what you started, Archie? Just see what you started.
I've done.
Go on, say your piece, though.
All I want to say is, we had an empire built upon blood and tears of people less fortunate than ourselves.
Right.
And for some reason, we want to go back to that.
So we want to go and colonise.
We want to free ourselves from the European Union so we can become great again.
But what does it mean to be great again? What is going to make Great Britain great? Okay, time out. We've got
a bit of you.
Right, yeah, man. I'm going to put a microphone if you're going to start shouting about it. But you think we should go and take countries away? We should colonise people.
They're not using it for
Why not?
I mean, the Sahara Desert. Why is it
So
there?
you think that that Britain should go and take over the Sahara Desert? We should claim that as our own.
We could just ask for it politely.
You could ask
That's
for it-
very British.
Who are we going to ask for the Sahara Desert?
The 3 people who live there.
We don't ask, we take.
Just annex it.
What are the thoughts, Tess? What are your thoughts on
I'm
this?
just going to talk about British culture because I don't want to talk about that. So I'm at a private school now. I go to Yarm, but before I was at a free school in Darlington, and not gonna lie, the British stereotype, I'm gonna list it: patchy fake tan, eyebrows drawn on, you've got foundation, you have a white
it's a little bit different for us in Birmingham. I'm not going to lie to you,
I
but
could literally pull up a picture of someone. I could bring up like 5 people's Instagram from my old school, and they all look exactly the same.
So
It is the British stereotype, and I personally, I don't mind the British stereotype because that's not me, so I don't get cast as the British stereotype.
Right. So is there a British stereotype? Is it all patchy face skin? Is it all patchy face skin, patchy makeup? Sorry, drawn sliders, Yeezys, all this sort of stuff. Callum, the man that really takes his fashion seriously, I think this is your time to shine.
There is the other side of British stereotypes, which is, oh yes, we all love tea and crumpets, and we're all going to have afternoon tea at the Queen's house. Yes.
So do you think? So you think there's 2 types? You're either one side, which is patchy tan makeup and sliders, or So do we think there's our own perception of British stereotypes and other countries' perception of British stereotypes as well?
I don't think it's just British stereotypes, because I think it's like stereotypes of every country. Like if you think of America, like personally when I think of America, I just think of like old men saying that we shouldn't have abortions because it's kind of Christianity.
Right.
Or you think of like
fat obese.
Yeah, like it's like that, and then like also like different cultures, and then there's like cultural appropriation and everything. Like if you want to talk about stereotypes and culture, it's not just the UK.
Right, so everywhere has a stereotype, everywhere has a culture. We've got a new face at the table. What's your name? But actually, I spoke to you before. You've just moved from the bench to here. Remind me of your name, though. Thank you.
Jimmy.
Jimmy, what? Jimmy, we haven't heard from you yet, my man. What are your thoughts on this? What do you think, my friend?
Well,
do you think we do have stereotypes and we're living up to those stereotypes? Do you think we need to get rid of them? I'm going to come to you guys at the back as well. I see you over there.
Well, there's this YouTuber called Laserbeam, and he's constantly going, alright, British top hat, infect the world with top hats and crumpets and tea. We don't, in our diet, we don't only eat crumpets.
Right, we don't only drink crumpets, we don't only drink crumpets, don't only eat crumpets and drink tea. There's other stuff to us than this. Now, before you sneak off, over there, I didn't get a final thought from you earlier, I don't think. You shut off. We're talking, at the minute, we've been talking about lots of stuff. Stereotypes, living up to these stereotypes. Do you think that we're confined by British stereotypes at the moment? Do we have to play into it?
I think the most important thing is to have a little bit of empathy so that you can understand other people's viewpoints and lifestyles.
I see dropping now. I think round of applause starts spot on though. Thank you. All right. So maybe we need a little bit more empathy in this situation. We need to understand other people a bit more, get involved in it as well. Thank you. What do you guys think, Archie?
Well, if we're dropping cultural stereotypes with other countries apart from Britain, let's go to France.
Right. Okay. What about France? Do you want to go into?
Just my little. He's half French over there, Paul. Pierre. No. Basically. If we're going to stereotypes, you've got like the classic jokes, like when you call 100 million men.
Whoa! Time's stopping it. Now we're going into the offensive joke territory that we were there. You were saying we shouldn't have it a second ago. You were about to drop one live on Talkaoke TV.
I won't say the joke. Basically, the classic stereotypes that the French army always surrenders and that they just frogs legs and that kind of thing.
Right.
But I think France is a much more beautiful country than Britain.
Right.
And that we even though it's stereotyped by so many different people.
Did somebody just say it's flat, like it's got no hills?
It's got a bit of
I love how that's how we value a country now. Yeah, it's flat, we don't have to walk up as many hills. That's exceptional.
I mean, I'm like half Italian, and everyone always says like the classic Italian jokes like pizza, buongiorno, like pasta.
We've had a lot of love for
Mamma Mia,
pizza
like
at the
that.
table.
It's like, oh, I flipping love pizza and pasta, but like.
Would you find that offensive when people do those stereotypes and those stereotypical impressions?
It depends on the context. Like, if it's like someone like. It's also like this. One of my friends, she's like really dyslexic, and we all make like the Bella Thorne jokes. And like, if it was a random person, well, it's like inside jokes. Like,
Right, okay.
It's like
So you're allowed to take the mick out of somebody's culture or their stereotype if you're very good friends with them, but not for strangers.
it has to be like as a friendship group, we've all like set boundaries with each other, and we all know how far's too much because we just know each other.
So it's about knowing the boundaries of that friendship and relationship. Iris, what are the thoughts?
Well, me and my best friend are constantly getting into trouble for offending people way too much. As we go up to people and say, "Oh, hey, fatso," and stuff like that.
Right.
Oh, you're a great person.
But do you think that going back to British? Hold on, going back to British culture. Do you think it is then? Are we allowed to insult each other? Is that just bullying, or is it just a way to interact with each other? What are the thoughts? Who was jumping? Toby, what are your thoughts,
I thought a minute ago she was all for not offending people. And now you suddenly say...
Hold on. Talkaoke is as much as about listening as it is about talking. So let's hear Toby out, and then we'll come back over.
Like, you can't really make jokes like that because then they're easily going to get offended. Like, and I thought before you were literally like standing up for people not making those jokes.
I say that to her. I don't say that to other people, but we always constantly. I only say that to her. But then the other people, I say stuff like, we'll make an inside joke about them and stuff, or like not about them, but like with them, and they'll just be like, oh, "That's just so offensive to those sorts of people."
Right. So Emma, just to bring you up to speed, I know you've come back. We're talking about offensive stereotypes. Are you allowed to take the mick out your friends, or should it be just get rid of offensive stuff altogether? Have a think, have a listen. We'll come to you in a sec. Callum, your thoughts?
Me and my friends, we all like tried to joke about my lisp and dimples a lot. Some of them call me Lispy Leaf, which I just laugh at them because on Snapchat I am known as Lispy Leaf.
Right, so it's almost like you've adopted that into your personality as well.
I accept them calling it, so I just make small jokes about them. And
so do you think that's what people need to do? Instead of being insulted by people taking the mick out of who they are, they need to embrace it and make it part of them?
Laugh at it. Accept and laugh at the jokes that they're making about you because you're thinking, it's about me. Woo.
I think it's a good point. I'm going to come to Archie and then I'll come back over to yourself,
What
Toby.
I would say is that after being hardened by years of bullying at school, I would say that you learn to kind of accept the idiosyncrasies that other people find in you.
Right. Okay.
And kind of accept them and use them as a superpower.
Right, idiosyncrasies, by the way, a couple of people are asking that. Do you want idiosyncrasies, like there's little things that are personal to you, those little traits that you have as well. So, do you think that we should embrace our little quirky elements, or should we try and hide them?
I'll be back in a moment.
Alright, no worries, you go. Where do you want to go from this one, guys? Do you want to carry on talking about this? Do you want to change it up? Do you want to go back to the British Empire? Oh, okay, I don't know, causing controversy there. Wait. I'm going to come over to Iris, yeah.
Okay, Brexit. Yeah. But Brexit, the thing is, why did they reject Theresa May's deal if it was so that we could be friends with them? I mean, if a World War III comes along, look what's going to happen. We're going to get bombed first.
Right, so have we made ourselves weaker by leaving? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, so, hold up a second, guys. Hold up a second. Because at the moment, we're shouting at each other, but we've got to understand each other as well. I got a good question. The question, I don't know what's with the tea analogy. Are we talking James Acaster? Is that what we're going? Oh yeah, I know this. It's a good analogy. Go on then.
So, you can imagine Brexit like a cup of tea, right? So, if Britain is a tea bag and the EU is a cup full of water, if the tea bag is in the water, if we're in the EU, the tea is stronger, yeah? But the tea bag is weaker. If we're out of EU, the tea is shit, basically, and the tea bag is as strong as it can be.
Interesting, yeah, Mikey.
Most Europeans drink coffee, and nobody wants a tea bag in their coffee.
Yeah. Mike is very adamant on his coffee points. He loves his coffee.
Like the whole point of the EU was to unite our countries and do stuff together. And now, since we've left, it's going to make us apart and not together and not like.
So you think it's dividing people?
Yeah, like now we won't be as connected with.
Do you feel like the country's become more divided and it's made it much worse for us?
Yeah, because now they all think the EU don't like us now, and it's like now we won't be that strong kind of
forefront so you think actually it's really damaged other countries' perception of us as well, and everyone thinks that we want to be divisive, we don't want to be around others.
I disagree with Brexit because it's like I said, it's gonna divide us, and
that's okay. You might not want to talk about.
It's gonna ruin our economy, and it's gonna affect everything really.
Right, okay, now I'm going to come to Daniel. He's been waiting patiently. What are your thoughts?
You were saying, I'm just going to use the tea analogy against you. We were already in the cup of tea, so now we've taken it out. The tea's still strong, and now we're just a soggy lump of paper.
Yeah.
And after. Yes, but you see, if you leave the tea bag in a ray of sunlight, it'll dry out and become strong again.
Maybe, but would you reuse that tea bag in the future, or would you just chuck it in the bin?
I don't know. Well, it depends on the situation that the tea's in, if someone needs it or not.
Right, but Mikey says we don't need to even drink tea. It's coffee that we should be focusing on. Get a bit more coffee in that.
Just make some vodka shots.
Right, so we're switching it over. But people saying, do we want to carry on talking about Brexit? Do we want to change it up? People feeling a bit passionate about wanting to move on.
I think most people's opinions on the subject are only about 4 years old, because no one actually cared about it before David Cameron was like, oh, you know what will get me to win? I'll just mention it. And then he was like, oh, we'll have a little referendum.
Right, so you think...
And then he messed it up, and everyone had to develop an opinion on the European Union and then vote about it. So no one's had the time to think about it.
So you think it's all been made up? Nobody actually cared about being in the EU until politicians made it an issue?
Like, they all lied, like, on both sides of the argument, and no one understood what it was about, truly.
You just call it as you see it, don't you, Toby? Yeah.
Well,
I like it. I think it's good.
They're all lies, and we weren't told their truth, and we weren't, educated in the way that we needed.
Truth?
Yeah, because they all just lie. They're liars. Politicians are liars.
I think it's a great point. Tess, what are your ideas on this?
I just think that, life, it's just, oh well, that's life. I think we all just need to move on and stop saying, like, oh, at the beginning this could have happened, this should have been done. It wasn't. So I think we just need to deal with the punches. This is life. Life is what you get thrown with. So I think we just need to also, we need to stop criticising the people who did it in the first place. Like Theresa May, she did the best with what she was handled, and everyone gave her so much yes for it. But I'm not gonna lie, the people who gave it to her probably they couldn't have done much better. So I
think these are all great points. But what I want to pick up on before we come to there's a lot of people stood at the back there looking very reflective. Do you think we should just deal with Brexit right now, get on with it, move past it, or should we keep the conversation? Should we keep talking about it? Does anyone want to jump in? Yeah, I knew you wanted to say something. Come in, my man. What were you saying?
I think nobody should vote. And
get close. I can't hear. What's your name as well?
It's Tim. I just think nobody should vote. And then we should just see what happens.
Right, so we shouldn't vote, we should leave it to other people, see what happens. He's edgy, coming in, dropping knowledge, and then backing out again. I like your style, Mikey.
I mean, Toby was saying, oh, people lied, but it's actually not. It's not a decision that's about facts, it's about feelings. It's like, do you feel part of the a European Union, or do you feel more separate from the European? So it's not actually about facts in the end, it's about
how you
identity, I think.
So you think the whole country's identity is changing a little bit?
Well, I think the problem is there's a split in identity, isn't it? Some people feel European, some people feel British in a way that excludes Europe.
Interesting, yeah. Who haven't been to in a while? Let's have a look round. Daniel, my man, let's go.
Well, there's so many... there's so lack of information when the referendum was first going around that a lot of the people that were voting didn't know what the hell they were voting for in the first place until after they found out. So people would have been voting for stronger immigration laws so we can control what we're doing. So let's leave the European Union so we can do that.
It's like we voted for, but now we discuss later.
Yeah, but
seems like a real smart plan, that one. I agree with you. I think it's a great point. We voted, then we talked about it, not the other way around. Should we have actually spoken about Brexit before voting on it? What are your thoughts, Archie?
Well, all I would say is that I feel like, if it had been, if there'd been an age cut-off age on the vote of 65,
right,
and we'd started at 16, the vote would definitely have gone to Remain.
So you maybe think that the parameters of the vote should be different?
It's because it was Margaret Thatcher who coined us leaving the European Union and the trade market in the early 90s, rather, before she got kicked out. You hear the malice. So it's the people who were sour about losing the first time round who have come back for a second round, along with the other people who have been manipulated.
So maybe we think the elderly shouldn't have been given the vote, and the young people, the upcoming generation, should have been given the vote. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of adults just go, "Oh, this got deep all of a sudden." What do you think, guys? I want to hear from people as well. I'm going to come to Emma. We haven't spoken much about it yet.
I don't know if this is true or not, but a lot of people are saying that it was the older generation who voted to leave the EU because they all think it's going back to what Britain used to be like, but I don't know.
Ban on dinosaurs getting to vote.
Right, so we should ban old people from voting. What's the cut-off age though? Because it's all subjective. If somebody said anyone over 25 can't vote anymore, how would you feel?
Over 20, yeah, obviously. Maybe
But some kids might call that old.
Over 70 or something.
Maybe over 70. All right, interesting. Mikey, thoughts?
I mean, I think this got suggested at last year's Deer Shed Festival. What it should have been is like your age minus your life expectancy is the number of votes you get. So say you're 20 and the life expectancy is 80, you get 60 votes.
Right.
But if you're 79 and your life expectancy is 80, you just get one vote. So that way it's weighted towards the future. So the people that live longer have got more of a say.
I feel like you've just actually accrued some votes there if you want to come forward, all right? Maybe you're the decisive factor in Brexit. Toby, thoughts?
Like, it's our future, and now we have to sort everything out that people... I'm not saying that they shouldn't have voted. I think everyone at their age should vote.
But do you feel that the younger generation now have to fix the mess?
We don't get a say, and now I believe that leaving the EU will ruin everything, and that we will unfortunately have to sort out the mess that they voted for. And, and like climate change, they've done this, and now our generation has to sort it out.
So there's all these issues. Now, I think this is a great point. There's a lot of hands. I'm going to get around to as many people as possible. We haven't heard who's that. It's Fen, go for it, my man. Thoughts?
I think probably 16 should be the starting age, and then after that anyone can vote.
After 16?
Older than 16, because that's the same age you get to give consent and other.
Right, so it's about if you can consent to other things at the age of 16, should you be allowed to consent to vote? You've got that process there.
And I just think with old people, it's their country.
What age are we talking with old people though?
That old. It's their country too, so I think.
Right, so everyone, they live here just because they're old, they shouldn't be withdrawn the right to. Now, Mikey, I'm going to go to someone else for a second now. I can see you're passionate, but I want to come to Emma first, and then we'll come back.
I understand, yes, the older generation did not do anything particularly great for climate change, but I also think we can't just blame them. Like,
you can't just blame the elderly.
I get it.
You have to bring others involved.
They've not done anything to help it, really.
They've not helped it. I'm going to come to yourself, then I'm going to Mikey.
Alright, going back to the British Empire thing, what is the point of Luxembourg? It's tiny. What is the point?
Right, so we should just ignore the small countries?
Yeah, like...
but we should take over the big countries,
yeah,
is that what you're saying?
like Jersey and Guernsey, what's the point of them? They're literally tiny islands.
So we shouldn't care about the small tiny islands, we should focus on ourselves as a tiny island.
I mean, tying...
Hold up, let's listen in.
Tying all these things together, I mean, when you guys get to, in 10 years' time, they'll inevitably, if the politicians do get around to doing Brexit and we're outside of Europe, you guys will just vote for us to come back in again. So
maybe that's what next year's.
That's what will happen anyway. So, and the same with climate change. Maybe politicians are not doing enough about it now, but when people your age get to voting age, then there will be much more of a drive to do something about climate change.
So maybe we've just got to wait. The younger generation's got to wait for their turn. I'm going to come to the back. Say what your name is, girl.
It's Hepsi.
Hepsi, what are your thoughts?
If we wait to do something about climate change, it's probably going to be too late.
Right, so if we're having to wait for our chance to do something, maybe it's too late. Name and thoughts. I didn't catch your name.
It's George.
George, what are your thoughts, George?
I think that doing Brexit again, because Brexit this time's cost everyone a lot of money, the EU, the UK, and doing it again might just cost more, and the NHS is already short on money.
Or we should just accept what it is now?
Yeah, the NHS is short on money already, and we don't need anything else to spend money on.
Right, so we need to stop spending so much money on this Brexit conversation and focus on things like the NHS, getting stuff back. Go for it, Tom.
Right, we should stop using age because that's an easy way. That's an easy variable to count on people. How about we do it as an IQ test? People with above average IQ get to vote, and that way, absolute pillocks like Boris Johnson don't have a chance of doing.
Intelligent though, I don't like him, but he's really intelligent.
Yeah, well, it sorts out some people that are less informed, and maybe some younger people that are more politically orientated, having a better chance of influencing their future.
So it's an interesting point to raise. Should you have to take an IQ test in order to vote? And would people go and do the IQ test if it wasn't compulsory? What are your thoughts? Have a look. Rob,
It's
go
not
for
even
it.
about that if you want to do that.
Should I pass it? Tell you what, let's carry on with this one. I'll come back to your thought in a second. That's what I'll do. Callum, drop some knowledge, my man. I'm coming to you. Help us out.
Talking about climate change, we can't just blame it on old people because with time that we've spent blaming it on them, we've been making it worse ourselves. So it's not just them.
But would it be okay though if those old people had taken an IQ test and passed it? Does that mean they should be able to just do whatever they want to do?
I think that could be an option if it's coming to the end and we're getting desperate to do something, and I think it would be a smart thing to do on like very big debates.
So only on the big ones though, not on the smaller conversation. It takes too long, too much time perhaps. Emma, what are your thoughts?
You never know, like you might be really intelligent but know absolutely nothing about climate change because no one's told you anything about it.
Right,
so I think what it should be is people who are like who know what it is should vote. And I know that's hard to decide
so
who
like
knows
professionals that have trained in this.
Yeah, or even just young children who know what it is, because a lot of people don't know, as someone said, I can't remember who it was, someone said people don't know what it was.
So if there's a vote on something that affects young people should be the one deciding what happens.
Yeah, but only if they know what's happening, because you could be 16 and have no idea what's happening.
An interesting counter argument. I'm going to come over to yourself again. Go for it.
Right, so politicians, they have knowledge, but they just don't have common sense.
Right, okay.
Any of it.
A lot of eyebrows just went up there, didn't they?
they have knowledge, but they just don't have common sense. They can't figure out, do we leave and lose a lot of power, or do we stay and kind of just go with it?
Maybe we need you in number 10. What would you do with the situation? It's a tricky question, isn't it? No one wants that job right now, apart from Boris.
I'd probably just get rid of Brexit.
Just get rid of it. Stop talking about it. Stop it. I'm going to come to Flanagan. What are your thoughts?
I just want to say, sorry, Vivian Rook, but I think that even if people with lower intelligence, not that, let's say, yeah,
with lower IQ?
Did this, yeah, lower IQ. If we put this move, I don't think that's good, because just because they have a lower IQ, I think, again, as I was saying with the older people, it's still their country, and I think above 16 we should allow everybody to vote.
Do you think it's like a human right that they have?
It is very much a human right.
I think that's great. We've got a new hand that's not spoken yet. We've got two new hands. We're going to pop over. What's your name?
Dominic.
Dominic, what are your thoughts on this? You've been taking it all in, soaking the information up.
Personally, I think there's a fine difference between IQ and there's lots of sections of IQ and intelligence. Like you can have common sense, you can be brilliant at maths and science, things like that. But if someone's intelligent, the politicians, you may not agree with politicians and things, but generally politicians have an IQ, a high IQ. Most of them went to private school, places like that. They've spent a lot of money in their education, but they don't. Just because they have a high IQ doesn't mean they listen to other people. They don't
Right, so they might not have gone through the problems that these people have gone through. They might not understand or empathise.
They won't. But just because a couple of people, it may be small problems, they won't listen to them because like they don't have those problems. Like,
right, I think that's a really interesting point. So you can be smart. It might be, if I grab the back, they might be smart, but they might be academically smart and good at school. But that doesn't mean that they can understand what the general public. You had a point as well, didn't you? Is it still relevant? Yeah. What was your name again? I didn't catch it.
My name's Charlie.
Charlie, what are your thoughts on this, Charlie?
My thoughts are that I think we should stay away from the kind of ageism and that kind of thing, excluding people from the vote, depending on their IQ or their age, because it's kind of like goes against equal opportunities.
Right.
I think we should put more of an onus on educating people and understanding that everybody has their own bit to contribute, and I think with regards to climate change, rather than actually saying, you know, who's going to clean up the mess, politicians should put some responsibility on corporations, such as, you know, don't let them use all this plastic and all the rest of it. I think that would be a better way forward than pushing the blame.
So maybe the target, what we're looking at, is the wrong focus at the moment. No, we're not concentrating on the right people for this conversation. We drag them in. Mikey, go for it, go for gold.
I just want to back up what Charlie's saying. It's like, when it comes to Talkaoke, there's no IQ test of who gets the mic. Everyone has got a right to have the microphone. But it's also, when it comes to voting, voting's not just about making the decision, but it's also about participating in the vote and actually being part of it. And you want everybody, I think, in the country to feel like they're a part of it, you know, including the young people. And I think that was the problems with the Brexit vote, is that they were excluded from that. So you want to involve as many people as possible, and voting is a way to involve people.
Right, I think it's an interesting point. Let's have a look. We were going to test what you thought.
I think what you're saying about politicians being at like private schools and stuff, yeah, if you look at it, probably a lot of them will have gone to, you know, Oxford, Cambridge. A lot of American politicians will be Ivy Leagues, but I personally don't think that private schools have that as much as a like pathway as people think that they do from being in private school. And
so you don't think it helps that much being in private school?
No, it's a different attitude of like learning. Like the people ask me like, oh, what's it like being at this school compared to that school? You can't compare them because it's two completely different.
So do you think that everyone should have the right to a private education? Because it kind of ties in with what Charlie was saying. We should be focused on educating people around things like climate change to make a difference.
Yeah, but I mean,
I'm just asking the questions. I mean, what do you think though? We'll finish off testing. We'll come to yourself, Tom.
I mean, there's people from like, I can't imagine people from the free school I was at in a private school, because it's all about like your way of learning and picking the best like thing for you. Like there's people being at the private school I'm at who've left to go to a different school because that teaching style isn't right for them.
Right.
Like,
so it's about finding the right fit for people, not just a one-size-fits-all kind of a situation.
I mean, if you look at Oxford, like my brother wants to go to Oxford, he's done very well in his exams, I mean, he's applied, but one thing that they were saying, it's not, people think that Oxford's this exclusive academic, you know, you need to have these very extremely high grades. It's not that, it's the teaching style there. It's very, you sit down in a lecture every day and sit and listen, and then it's this study on your own, you do the learning on your own, and you listen in a lecture.
What works best for you as an individual in the situation. Where do we go to from this conversation? Let's have a look. Irish, I haven't heard from you in a while, and then I'm going to come over there.
But isn't that incredibly stereotypical, saying that people who go to like free schools, you can't imagine them in a private school, because isn't that stereotypical?
Certain people, but we also said as well that certain people at private schools don't work there and want to go to state. But I think the point there is, should everyone be allowed to go to a private school and have the chance to if it works best for them? Because not everyone has that opportunity, do they?
Yeah,
but that's sort of where you're asking and where it comes
from.
There's
like a ton of people that are like so much less fortunate than like, say, people who can go to private schools.
So maybe having that opportunity for those less fortunate. Archie, what are your thoughts on it?
I hate to disagree with you, but it's the difficulty of, you know how you said like you don't feel like private schools necessarily lead to like pathways into. My issue with Oxford and Cambridge is that it's not about your intelligence. It's about whether your family have been there. It's about who you know. I think it's over 50% of the people who go to Oxford or Cambridge are from privately educated schools. Over 75% of the people who go to Oxford or Cambridge are from the south. It only takes 25%.
So how would you change this or rectify it?
I'm not talking about rectifying it because it's not going to be rectified. It's a traditional school. That's how it is. That's how it always will be. Unfortunately,
it's just going to be that way.
My problem is that why is it that people who don't necessarily have any idea what they're doing end up in high positions merely because they come from rich families and have been to privately educated schools?
So it's just that whole generational stuff. We've got support from over there as well. Right? Yeah, go for it. That's what talking folk is about. It's about passion. It's about getting involved. It's about getting your opinion. Mikey, go for it.
I mean, I don't think it's about how many people from private schools get into Oxford and Cambridge. It's about the number of people from Oxford and Cambridge that run the establishments. Are you getting cold? Will? Do you want to have a switch? I can give you one of my jumpers if you want. Or you have a switch around. But no, it's like Oxford and Cambridge. The people from those, like a large proportion of people that are from Oxford and Cambridge are in journalism, are in politics. So it's the dominance that those two universities, all the other educational institutions, have on the country, which is the issue to me. Not about how many privately educated people get into Oxford and Cambridge. It's about the whole establishment.
It's an interesting point there, Mikey. What we'll do, there's a lot of hands, but Fen, we haven't heard from you in a while. What are your thoughts?
I just think if, as you're saying, there's no difference between the fact that people who go to state or public schools and private schools, then why have private schools in the first place?
Should we just get rid of them and then just have all state schools? Everyone should have the right to an education.
Yeah, I think that I don't think that just because someone has more money than others that they can have the right to have a better education.
Right.
We should all have a fair education so we can choose how wealthy we want to become in life.
So it's about making it a bit more of a level playing field
so
for everyone.
we can all be educated similar, so we don't so if some a richer person had more money and then got their child to go to this private school, they get more money because they've been educated well, and then their families that are poorer can't get their children to get to a good educational school.
Everyone should have that right and that chance and that ability. Yeah. Now, I've got to say, it's one of the first times that young people are really getting involved with the equality sort of conversation, and adults just I don't know where to get involved in this one. Should we get involved? Adults, if you've got something to say, I want to come to you. I want to hear it as well. Yeah, go for it. What's your name?
Hiya, I'm Sammy.
Sammy, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think everyone should have the opportunity to a private education?
I don't know about private education, but it's worth saying that there's just as much of a problem with very exclusive state schools where they're effectively selected by house price. So it's not so much about private or state, it's about inequity in education in general.
It goes across all the boards. It's not just something that's betwixt just private education, it goes to all of them.
Because there's plenty of places where there's loads of, state schools where people have many privileges and kind of lots of opportunities that come up, and equally there's state schools where 60-70% of the kids are on free school meals.
I think it's a great point there, thank you. We've got just to the side, what was your name again? You haven't spoken yet.
Win,
go for it. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, if all education was free...
Pardon, say it one more time?
If all education was free, then would have this matter. But if to education, I don't think it's right to pay for a better education. I think all education should be the same.
Yeah, you think it should all be the same? That quality of education should go across to everyone.
No matter how much it costs.
And I think you've got a lot of support here as well, Win. I think what we're going to do, there's lots of hands as well, so while we can play, I'm going to come to Emma,
I think I agree with a lot of what people have said, different bits of it. I do think everyone should have the same education, because I don't think anyone should have a higher education because of the amount of money that they have.
Yeah.
But I also think it depends a lot on what you want to do when you're older, what jobs you want to have, of where you should go. So if you want to do something that's really, you have to have lots of lots of GCSEs or A-levels or whatever. You have to have more. I think if you're willing to spend that money on it, then you should.
So there should almost be different schools, like schools that would teach more practical skills like building or plumbing, than schools that want to go for politicians or teachers, and you should be taught on what you want to do in the future, sort of a thing. I think it's an interesting point. Come to yourself,
I didn't think that would be the best idea, mainly because when you're a child, you don't necessarily know what you want to do when you're older. So I feel like if someone chose what school they wanted to go to for a job which they wanted to do, Because I feel like some kids would just choose like jobs like astronauts and stuff.
Right.
And then when they get older,
But do we need more astronauts? If there was an opportunity to be an astronaut, how cool would that be?
I feel like people should just get education for all skills, including life skills and educational.
So we need life skills, we need educational skills. Mikey, I'm going to come to yourself just because I need to warm up.
Doing the Talkaoke. Do you want me to start? Yeah, of course. But I mean, I'm glad I got a chance to give my opinion before I go in the middle. But because I go to a lot of schools, and I go to state schools, I go to all schools from all different areas, and I feel like it's not just the content of education that's different, but in the very wealthy private schools, people are kind of told there's an implicit expectation of those kids that they're going to be leaders, whereas in the state schools it's all about serving and obeying. Right. And I think that message comes across to the kids, and it's harder for the kids to then that come from the state schools to see themselves as leaders.
So maybe
because
that's
implied
into the state as well.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, that's part of the whole structure, I think, of how education works in this country.
So do people agree with that? Do we think that people at state schools are taught to be more obedient, be more complicit, whereas people at private schools are taught to lead and be leaders?
I like extremely disagree with that, because like at state schools, it's the attitude towards the children is no different. It's not. The difference between private school and state school is not the attitude to the children. It's the attitude towards the education. It's not actually but it's not about the relationship between the teacher and that child, because most teachers in state schools could easily teach at a private school. That's not the problem.
Right.
It's like. Because another way that, in a different way to private school, another way state schools do a lot of like leadership stuff is through sport. Like state school sport is like, it's a different scene, but they do a lot of like leading through sport. Like you get a lot of captains of football teams, captains of rugby teams, cricket teams. Maybe
there is leadership in both, but slightly different altering versions of it.
Well, can I just ask, like, what kind of schools does everyone go to? Like,
do people want to share? I can ask. What sort of schools do people go to? Hands up if you go to a state school and you're in the state. Hands up if you're in private education. Hands up if you're homeschooled. No homeschoolers though. Oh, okay, interesting. Quite a lot of state, a couple of private. So in the minority of the private schools, state school seems to be the biggest. Rob.
What I was going to say was, since sort of hard truth is that people who wish to do better academically will end up, if they have the money, going to a private school. You don't ever hear of people going to private school and then getting an apprenticeship.
Right.
Because that's not what they want to do. You barely ever hear of people going to private schools and getting an apprenticeship.
That was a quick U-turn. That was.
I ruined that entire argument straight out. But it's not like it's any less difficult to do an apprenticeship, because it's just a different skill set. Because I feel like maybe a sort of like educational, not like educational benefits, but sort of like a scholarship.
Yeah.
If people are getting the right grades to go to a private school, and they could do well.
I think it's an interesting point as well. Wait to get to go for it, Archie.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I would just. I've been holding on to this for a while. All right. People keep on referring to education at private school as a better education. I would like to point out that education in primary school is not necessarily better, right? Because the teachers are getting paid quite a large amount of money, to be fair. Not necessarily larger. Not necessarily. I'm sorry. Not necessarily more than people at comprehensive schools. It could be less even. But because this is from my experience, it might not be right, but from my experience, the teachers don't need necessarily. They're getting paid at the end of the day, and their students are being sent to that school because they have money.
So maybe the teachers don't care as much about.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit like sort of at grammar schools as well, like, because the teachers don't even necessarily have to work as hard at a grammar school, because the students are in an extremely academic environment. Yeah. So it's kind of like state schools can offer a better education, in my opinion.
I think it's an interesting point. Emma, we haven't heard from you in a while. What are your thoughts?
Personally, at like a public school, I don't feel like I have a disadvantage to anything like in particular. I don't feel like there's less of a education there than there would be if I went. Obviously, I've never been to a private school, so I wouldn't know. But like, I still feel like I could do well in my life without having to, like, you know, pay the extra money to go to a better school.
Right, interesting point. Tess, go for it.
This is weird for me because like I'm planning on doing an apprenticeship. I'm planning on going into that kind of thing. I mean, I'm not academic. I'm just not. My brother is the epitome of a private school child. I mean, I'm bottom set French, like I'm basically bottom maths. I'm doing double science. I had better grades when I was at a public school. My grades were better.
So maybe it's about the environment that suits the person.
I mean, for me, the reason I'm at a private school is I do the most pretentious sport. I row.
Okay.
Nothing
wrong with being a rower.
I was at trials the other week. It was all kids from the southern private school children. I mean,
but do you think rowing should be allowed in public schools? Maybe that's the point that people are making.
The only reason I row at a private school is because we're next to a river. I mean, it's not really a private school thing. It's just because there's a river. But no, I don't think that. I mean, the reason I'm there is because there's the music scene there is very, very big. Yeah. I mean, the drama, the music, sports. I mean, that's why I'm there. I'm not really there academically. I know that I'm not going to do the best in my GCSEs.
It's more of the vocational side of things. I think it's a great point. Now, I want to keep this conversation going, but I have lost sensation in my feet. So I need to go and change my socks, get some jeans on. So I think what we'll do, we'll get mine if that's all right in a second. But we're going to keep this going. So, Daniel, you wanted to share an idea, didn't you, on sort of education and your point of view. I'm going to swap into here. You can carry on going. No, I am going to swing the...
I don't think that... Even if a public school was next to a river, not many public schools would be able to do the rowing because they don't have the money. It's
not.
Hang on. Can we just have a huge round of applause for Will because he's been in the table for ages. Oh, no. Okay, so... All right, so we're back in. So let me just try and I'm not sure I've really been paying attention, but something about private schools, state schools, something about different education environments, and that's where we are right now. Daniel was making a point, I know. Maybe let's just get a very, very quick round of names. We don't want to waste much time on it, but I just want to refresh. So I'm just going to very, very quickly go around and say your name very, very quickly.
Toby.
Too late.
Tess. Emma. Iris.
Ellie.
Callum. Johnny.
Daniel.
Jimmy.
Fen.
Archie.
Tom.
Robert.
Paul.
Okay, and I'm Mikey. Sorry, we missed you. What's your name?
Zavi.
Okay. Right. So what was the point you were making, Daniel?
A lot of public schools don't have the money to do it because you pay.
Hang on a sec. Let me just finish the point, Daniel.
It's not just about teacher-student relationships and the technique towards teaching, but as much as people like to, as much as some people when talking about. It's also the resources the school has available to teach. Private schools generally do have a lot more money at their disposal than public schools.
Okay, let me just get a final thought from you guys before you go, and I'd like you to do it sitting down. Not all of you can, because this guy's taken up a seat. But let's get a final thought.
Abolish the monarchy and rebuild the economy.
Okay.
Okay, well, essentially, the world's going to end at some point, so instead of trying to combat climate change, we should just build a rocket and go to Mars.
Okay. Is that a rocket made out of trash? That's what we were talking about this time yesterday.
Do drugs in moderation.
Okay, that's all different subjects, but maybe they could inform this subject. So we've got some spare spaces on the table. Come and have a seat on the table of chat. We've lost somebody there. I can't remember who that was. Oh, it was Emma. We've lost Emma and Tess. Can we get a final thought from you before you go, Tess? What's that? You're a bit far away from. You've got to come a bit closer than that and then give us a final thought. Come back and let's have a round of applause. Don't drink and drive. Okay, this is all like extra subjects, but we've got some spaces and we've got some gaps. We've got some redundancy in our table. We'll have a seat. There's no Asian on Talkaoke. You're very welcome to come and sit down. There's a point over here, Toby.
Yeah. Back to the whole private school thing.
Yeah.
In private schools, they get opportunities like swimming pools and further things like for sporting opportunities or whatever people want to do. But in public schools, we don't get that opportunity because, like,
right. So it's way more opportunity,
you have to pay to get what this like.
Does that
to
have
get
a consequence?
Better education in things.
Does that have a consequence? Do you think?
Well, yeah. If a child wants to do one thing and then they can't because they don't have enough money, then that's quite like. Tragic.
Okay, so they're kind of denied that right to follow their dream. Let's have some seats here. Come around. We've got a point here. I always like to favour the new people. What's your name, first of all?
Rich.
Rich, what's your point?
Well, we've talked a lot about public and private education and about how life chances differ. Should we reset the clock when parents die and redistribute inheritance wealth? Would that solve the problem?
Okay, so I mean, what's your plan then? What's your plan? Like, just give everyone the money. How's it going to work?
Well, I'll be dead, so I don't need a plan. I'm just wondering
okay, so you're on
the younger generation think that might solve the problem.
Have you got loads of money to give out when you die?
Well, it depends on the insurance, not personally.
Okay. So I think I'm picking. I'm not really. Well, I've got a little bit of interference on this. I'm not really sure exactly what the scheme is. Something about redistributing rich's wealth when he dies to help the less privileged kids. Something like that.
Everybody else's wealth. So
okay, not your wealth. Everybody else's wealth. Okay. So what do other people think about that? You've had your hand up for a while. Let me come over here.
Hello. I just wanted to say, going back to the private school thing. My friend goes to a private school. I've heard that he gets to do a lot of things earlier than at public schools.
Does that mean he gets to go home earlier?
No, he goes. He stays after school.
Stays longer. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they get more privileges, and because I was in year 1 and he was doing the Great Fire of London, and then I was in year 2 and then I was doing the Great Fire of London. They get to do it before. They also get to do different activities to people in private public schools.
Okay.
And I think it's kind of unfair.
Okay, so there's an unfairness about this. Okay, final thought?
Nuclear weapons are bad. Don't do drugs. More money towards education, and this is an amazing platform to get kids interested in talking about big topics, and I think it's amazing what you do here.
Oh, thank you. Well, tomorrow we're going to be trying out a few people in the table. We've got some space here. So where do we want to go with this? We're talking about unfairness. What's your name again?
John T.
John T is talking about a little sense of unfairness. Is it unfair? Could we make it more fair? Yep.
About what I can't remember. Toby said about the swimming pools. I strongly object because, say I'm going to Callum School because I'm the year below, but we go to a grammar school, and it's sort of like a public school, is it?
Yeah,
it's a public school, and it has a swimming.
You mean state funded?
Yeah. And it's got a swimming pool, and it's got a rowing club, and it's got loads of different clubs. And as Tess was saying, she thinks that private schools are more they've got better facilities, but they really haven't, because some schools could just be I don't know, it's a private school, but there could be some state schools that have been funded maybe more, or they put more money towards it.
The unfairness is not necessarily between private and state schools?
Just bringing a bit up about the school. It is funded by parents paying for students to have iPad, and there are
so parents do pay in a little bit.
Yeah, there are big trips
system.
to different countries,
Okay.
like France and Mallorca.
Okay, so there is quite a lot of perks to your school. Come and sit on this seat. Don't worry, it is safe. Okay, we've got a point here, and then to Fen.
So, what John was saying about difference in state and private is, well, the reason there is such a difference for that is because people are paying that school thousands of pounds a year, so they get to spend that on educational.
Fair? You think that's fair?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's fair. They're paying in, so they should get something back. Final thought?
This is really fun, and it's kind of brought loads of new thoughts about things I wouldn't normally think about.
Okay, what's been the sort of
private schools, and my really strong opinion to Brexit that I haven't realised I've had.
Okay, you didn't realise you thought so strongly about it?
One thing I have to say about Brexit here, excuse my language, just bollocks to Brexit, to be honest.
Okay, bollocks to Brexit over here. Okay, I'm going to just, because Fen's had his hand up.
I just want to pull this one. My dad works at a private school, and I don't get taught there, but I've been there, I've seen the stuff they do there, I've seen the teachers, and I think the reason the teachers are more academically, they have a higher academic than the teachers who work at state schools, and I think that's mainly because they're better quality, because I think that they are hired for more, because that school has the chance to hire. So if we put the teachers under the same, as they were saying about swimming pools and that, if we put teachers under the label of, it's going to sound a bit odd, of as something like a swimming pool, as a
so it's more, what are you saying, it's more about the teaching staff than the facilities?
Yeah, but I think, yeah.
Okay, and I mean, is that, you've got a point there on the come and just put it on a wide shot, Will, and come and sit down?
I think what the issue is someone that works in a multitude of schools, whether that's private or state. I work in schools every day with a lot of different young people, and I think a lot of the issues that have been raised on the table do stand true. I think that when you're in a private school, it sounds like there's a conversation around the facilities that are taking place. I think what that does is it opens up so many new avenues for people, and people from disadvantaged backgrounds who don't have access to that might not engage in things like tested with rowing. You know, they might be the next Olympic rower, but they've never been given that opportunity. So the teaching may differ, but the facts remain that they have better resources, better ability to practice, more opportunities to get involved, to where less disadvantaged people don't have that opportunity.
And what do you think the answer to that is? Is that just how it is?
You should get rid of you shouldn't capitalise on education. It's as simple as, I think it should be a state-run affair. Education and personal opinion. Yeah, we shouldn't have private schools or grammar schools. I think you should have a multitude of different education environments where you have kinesthetic learners, you have people that learn by doing, or academia. I think that is the Norway model that do it. They've thrived in Norway because of the different education system that they have.
Okay, so could we do it like Norway? I noted you over there, but there was a point over here.
I totally agree what he was saying about it shouldn't be capitalised, and education should be totally free because it's something we all need, something every single person needs in the world.
Even old people?
Yeah, sometimes even old people.
So maybe education should also be free for older people as well. I know, but we've got a new person that hasn't spoken yet. So,
so Janet, and I agree. Education shouldn't be capitalised, but we live in a system where tax wins votes, so tax cuts wins vote, and sadly our society, we want to live somewhere where you pay the same rates as you would do in the States, low tax rates, but we want the same benefits as you would get in Scandinavia. So I would very happily be paying 40, 50, 60% of my wages and have a really fair egalitarian system. As it is, we don't, and so we are taking the opportunity with our son to actually, we are educating him privately because we can see what's happening with all of the cuts and the opportunities that are being lost. And as a child of the 80s, I was at secondary school in the 80s, there was no there was no extracurricular stuff at the time because we had a Tory government. And
so you'd rather be paying that money that you're paying to the private school into some like super deluxe state system? Okay. Will likes your point. The cameraman's on the point. Rich, you had a point over here?
Yeah, well, firstly I'd agree, because that's my other half.